Long before our satellites mapped the Earth and our algorithms measured every angle, something else was built, structures that still refuse to fit neatly into our understanding. Carved stone aligned with impossible precision, foundations that challenge what we believe ancient tools could achieve. These monuments stand in silence, not as ruins, but as questions. Who designed them? What knowledge guided their creation? And why do they still defy modern explanation? Tonight, we step beyond accepted timelines and comfortable theories to examine the evidence itself. Because once you look closer, history may not be as settled as we think. At the northwestern edge of the Dead Sea, where the land fractures into pale cliffs and salt-stained earth, the ruins of Qumran lie exposed to wind and sun. The landscape feels deliberately empty, as if stripped down to essentials. Stone walls emerge from the dust, thick, angular, and unexpectedly imposing. Some sections appear heavier than necessary, built with a confidence that seems to exceed the modest settlement they are usually said to enclose. These are the megalithic walls of Qumran, and they do not immediately explain themselves. Mainstream archaeology describes Qumran as a small communal center dating roughly from the 2nd century BCE to the 1st century CE. It is most famously associated with the nearby caves where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the mid-20th century. According to prevailing theory, the site was inhabited by a Jewish sect, often identified as the Essenes, who lived an austere, ritual-focused life. The walls, in this view, were practical: boundaries, workshops, water systems, and defensive elements suited to a remote desert community. Yet, when examined closely, certain features resist easy classification. Some walls are unusually massive for a settlement with no clear military role. Their construction shows careful planning, with large stone blocks fitted in ways that suggest more than hurried utility. The layout itself is puzzling. Neither fully domestic nor overtly fortified. Why invest so much labor in stonework here, in such an unforgiving environment, if the purpose was merely communal living? Archaeologists point to Qumran's complex water system as justification. Channels, cisterns, and reservoirs were carved to capture rare desert rainfall, supporting ritual purification practices. The heavy walls may have helped stabilize these installations. This explanation is plausible, grounded in observable evidence and regional parallels. And yet, even with this context, questions linger. The scale still feels excessive. The precision still feels intentional beyond necessity. This is where alternative interpretations begin to surface, not as replacements for accepted history, but as responses to its gaps. Some researchers suggest Qumran may have had earlier phases of construction, predating the Essene period entirely. The megalithic walls, they argue, could be remnants of an older site later repurposed, their original function forgotten or overwritten by time. Others note similarities, subtle but intriguing, between Qumran's stonework and far older Near Eastern traditions of monumental building, raising the possibility of lost continuity rather than isolated innovation. More speculative voices go further still. They ask whether Qumran's location between desert and sea near tectonic fault lines was chosen for reasons we no longer recognize. Was it strategic in ways not strictly military? Symbolic in ways not strictly religious? Or could the walls themselves mark something more than habitation? An observatory, a boundary of sacred space, or a site tied to knowledge now fragmented across texts and ruins? These ideas remain unproven, and many are contested. But they persist because the walls themselves persist, mute and unmoved by explanation. They do not announce their purpose. They simply exist, bearing the weight of centuries and interpretation alike. Standing among the ruins today, one is struck less by what is known than by what is unresolved. The stones offer no inscriptions, no clear declarations, only alignment, mass, and silence. And in that silence, the question remains, were these walls built solely for the needs we understand, or do they belong to a chapter of human history still waiting to be read? From the silence of the Judean desert, where stone walls guard questions older than their builders, our journey now drifts west, across seas, across centuries, to a very different landscape. Here, the mystery does not rise from cliffs and salt flats, but from green fields and Atlantic wind. On the southern coast of Brittany in western France, the land opens gently toward the water, and lying within it, broken yet unmistakably monumental, is the base of the Locmariaquer Grand Menhir. At Locmariaquer, the earth itself seems to remember. Grass grows around massive fallen stones, and the horizon feels unusually low, as if something once stood here that redefined scale. The Grand Menhir, often referred to as the Grand Menhir Brisé, now lies shattered into several enormous fragments. When upright, it is estimated to have stood over 20 meters tall and weighed more than 300 tons, making it the largest known standing stone ever raised by Neolithic people. Mainstream archaeology dates the monument to around 4,500 BCE. This places its construction deep in the Neolithic period, long before metal tools, written language, or wheeled transport were thought to be common in the region. The stone itself is believed to have been quarried several kilometers away and transported across uneven terrain. How this was achieved remains one of the site's central questions. Proposed explanations involve wooden rollers, sledges, ropes, and coordinated labor over extended periods of time. None of these ideas are impossible, but when confronted with the sheer scale of the stone, they feel incomplete. The base where the menhir once stood is particularly striking. It is not a casual setting, but a carefully prepared socket cut into the ground, suggesting deliberate planning and precise engineering. This was not an experiment. It was a statement. Nearby, other monumental stones, dolmens, tumuli, and alignments dot the landscape, connecting Locmariaquer to a broader megalithic tradition that includes the famous stones of Carnac. Together, they form one of the densest concentrations of prehistoric monuments in Europe. Conventional interpretations suggest religious or ceremonial significance. The menhir may have served as a territorial marker, a symbol of social cohesion, or a focal point for ritual gatherings tied to seasonal cycles. Some researchers propose astronomical alignments, noting the stone's orientation in relation to the sun and nearby monuments. These ideas are supported by patterns observed at other Neolithic sites, lending them a cautious credibility. And yet, the fall of the Grand Menhir complicates the story. At some point, possibly around 4000 BCE, the stone was deliberately toppled. The fractures suggest controlled force rather than random collapse. Why would a community invest such extraordinary effort to raise a monument, only to bring it down generations later? Was it accidental, the result of ground instability or erosion? Or was the act intentional, driven by social change, shifting beliefs, or even conflict? Here, speculation quietly enters. Some suggest the menhir belonged to an older symbolic system that later builders no longer understood or accepted. Others wonder whether the stone marked something now invisible, perhaps a convergence of roots, resources, or meanings lost to time. A few fringe theories go further, questioning whether Neolithic societies possessed organizational or technical knowledge that we have underestimated, or whether the monument reflects a shared cultural memory stretching far beyond regional boundaries. What makes Locmariaquer compelling is not any single theory, but the persistence of uncertainty. The evidence is tangible: the stone fragments, the prepared base, the surrounding monuments. But the intent behind them remains elusive. There are no inscriptions here, no oral traditions preserved in text. Only scale, placement, and silence. Standing before the fallen Menhir today, one senses both accomplishment and absence. The stone no longer points skyward, yet it still commands attention. It invites comparison to other ancient structures, other unanswered questions, other moments in human history where effort outweighed explanation. And so, as with Qumran's walls, we are left not with resolution, but with continuity. A reminder that long before our measurements and models, people shaped stone with purpose and conviction. Whether that purpose was spiritual, social, or something we no longer have words for, remains unclear. The base of the Grand Menhir waits, embedded in the earth, holding space for a meaning that may not yet have fully surfaced. From the fallen stone of Brittany, where a monument once reached toward the sky and now rests in fragments, our path turns south, across the Mediterranean, into an island shaped by wind, water, and deep time. Here, the mystery does not lie in what collapsed, but in what descends. On Sardinia, hidden among rolling hills, oak forests, and volcanic stone, ancient stairways lead not upward, but down, into the earth itself. The Nuragic sacred wells appear almost suddenly in the landscape. From above, they are modest, circular stone enclosures, carefully arranged, blending into their surroundings. But step closer, and the structure reveals its true intent. Narrow staircases descend in perfect symmetry, each stone precisely cut, each step drawing the eye downward toward a pool of still, dark water. Light fades as you move deeper, until the world above is reduced to a distant opening, round, deliberate, exact. These wells are attributed to the Nuragic civilization, a culture that flourished on the island from roughly 1800 to 500 BCE. Best known for the thousands of stone towers called Nuragi that dot Sardinia's countryside, the Nuragic people left no written records. Their history is told entirely through architecture, tools, and silence. Among their most enigmatic constructions are these sacred wells, built with a level of precision that feels almost out of place in the Bronze Age. Archaeologists agree on certain fundamentals. The wells were designed to access underground water sources, springs and aquifers that were vital in a dry Mediterranean climate. The stonework is typically made of basalt or limestone, shaped and fitted without mortar. The staircases often number an odd count of steps, leading to a small chamber where water collects, sometimes reflecting the opening above like a dark mirror. In sites such as Santa Cristina, the geometry is so exact that the structure feels less excavated than composed. Mainstream interpretations suggest these wells were ritual centers dedicated to water worship. In many ancient cultures, water represented life, renewal, and connection to the divine. Offerings found nearby, bronze figurines, pottery, animal remains, support the idea that people gathered here for ceremonies. The descent itself may have held symbolic meaning, a journey from the surface world into a sacred, hidden realm. But as with so many ancient structures, closer examination complicates the narrative. The engineering involved is striking. Some wells display advanced understanding of load distribution, with corbelled roofs and perfectly aligned stone courses. In certain cases, the opening at the top aligns with celestial events. At Santa Cristina, during lunar standstills, moonlight can penetrate the well shaft and reflect directly off the water below, a phenomenon that appears too precise to be accidental. Was this intentional? And if so, why? Researchers cautious of speculation note that ancient builders were keen observers of nature. They tracked seasons, stars, and cycles essential for agriculture and survival. Aligning a sacred structure with lunar or solar events would not be extraordinary. It would be practical, symbolic, and culturally resonant. Still, the consistency of these alignments across multiple sites raises questions about shared knowledge and planning over generations. This is where more speculative interpretations quietly emerge. Some suggest the wells functioned as instruments, not merely symbolic spaces, but tools for observation. Could they have been used to track time, measure celestial cycles, or mark calendrical transitions? The still surface of the water, shielded from wind and distortion, would have acted as a natural reflector. In this view, the sacred well becomes not just a shrine, but a kind of interface between earth and sky. Other fringe theories push further, proposing that the Nuragic people possessed a lost scientific tradition, one that blended ritual and observation seamlessly. The underground setting, the precise geometry, the acoustic properties of the chambers, these features invite questions about sound, resonance, and altered perception. When standing at the base of a well, even a whisper can feel amplified, transformed. Was this sensory experience part of the design, meant to inspire awe or introspection? Skeptics counter that we risk projecting modern fascination onto ancient intention. The Nuragic civilization, they argue, need not be mysterious to be impressive. Skillful stonework, ritualized spaces, and astronomical awareness are well attested in Bronze Age societies across Europe and the Mediterranean. The wells may simply represent a local expression of widely shared human concerns: water, time, and meaning. Yet the unanswered questions persist, not because evidence is lacking, but because it points in multiple directions at once. There is no single blueprint, no inscription explaining purpose. Some wells are isolated, others are part of larger ceremonial complexes. Some show signs of long-term use, others seem to have been abandoned abruptly. Why such variation? Why invest so much effort underground, where visibility is limited and access controlled? Standing at the edge of a Nuragic sacred well today, the experience is quietly unsettling. The descent draws you inward, away from noise and horizon. The stones feel deliberate, patient. The water below reflects not just light, but presence. It is easy to imagine generations returning to this same spot, repeating gestures whose meaning was understood then, but not now. As with the Menhir of Locmariaquer and the walls of Qumran, the sacred wells of Sardinia resist closure. They are functional, yet symbolic, ancient, yet precise, familiar in their materials, yet foreign in their intent. And perhaps that is their enduring power, not to provide answers, but to remind us that human ingenuity has always moved along paths more complex than our categories allow. What knowledge guided these builders underground? What rituals unfolded in the half-light, beside water that still flows after 3,000 years? And how much of the story remains buried, not beneath stone, but beneath our assumptions about the past? From the half-lit depths of Sardinia's sacred wells, where stone and water framed rituals we can no longer name, our exploration rises once more to the surface. Northward, across sea and continent, the mystery follows us into a gentler landscape. Here, the earth is green, the air damp with Atlantic weather, and the past does not descend underground, but lies open beneath the sky. In the rolling countryside of South Wales, a cluster of massive stones rests in deliberate stillness. This is the Tinkinswood burial chamber. Just west of modern Cardiff, near the village of St. Nicholas, the monument sits quietly within a field, partially sheltered by trees. At first glance, it appears almost accidental, a pile of stones arranged by time rather than intent. But as the eye adjusts, structure emerges. Enormous upright slabs support a single capstone weighing an estimated 40 tons, balanced with a precision that feels both fragile and absolute. This is Tinkinswood Burial Chamber, one of the best preserved Neolithic chambered tombs in Britain. Archaeologists date its construction to around 3,700 BCE, placing it among the earliest monumental stone structures in the region. Long before metal tools or written records, Neolithic communities shaped this landscape with stone and earth. Tinkinswood was once covered by a long earthen mound, now mostly eroded, which would have concealed the chamber within. What remains is the stone heart of the structure, exposed, enduring, and unresolved. Excavations carried out in the early 20th century revealed the remains of at least 40 individuals inside the chamber, along with fragments of pottery and stone tools. This has led to the prevailing interpretation. Tinkinswood was a communal burial site, a place for the dead rather than the living. The chamber may have been reopened repeatedly over generations, bones rearranged or removed as part of ritual practice. In this view, the monument reflects ancestor veneration, reinforcing social bonds through shared memory and shared burial space. Yet, even within this framework, questions arise. The scale of the stones is extraordinary. The capstone alone is among the largest in any British tomb. Transporting and positioning it would have required careful planning, coordinated labor, and a deep understanding of balance. Why commit such effort to a structure meant primarily to hold the remains of the dead? What significance did this place hold that justified such permanence? The orientation of the chamber adds another layer of intrigue. Its entrance faces roughly east, toward the rising sun. This alignment is common among Neolithic tombs, often interpreted as symbolic, a connection between death and rebirth, darkness and light. But symbolism does not preclude precision. Was the alignment purely ritual, or did it mark specific times of year? Seasonal change mattered deeply to early agricultural societies, and monuments like Tinkinswood may have anchored those cycles in stone. Local folklore, though not evidence, hints at the monument's enduring presence in cultural memory. Stories speak of supernatural consequences for those who disturb the stones, or of spirits lingering nearby. Such tales emerged long after the tomb's builders were gone, yet they suggest that the site retained an aura of significance across millennia. Even in later periods, people sensed that this was not an ordinary arrangement of stone. Some researchers have noted similarities between Tinkinswood and other megalithic structures across Britain and Western Europe. Chambered tombs, dolmens, and passage graves appear in patterns that suggest shared ideas, or shared origins, among distant communities. How did these ideas spread? Through migration, trade, or parallel development? And how much knowledge was transmitted orally, generation to generation, without leaving a trace we can now recover? More speculative interpretations emerge at the edges of this discussion. A few researchers have questioned whether sites like Tinkinswood served functions beyond burial. The chamber's enclosed space, its acoustics, and its controlled access raise questions about experience. Sound behaves differently within the stone enclosure. Voices resonate. Footsteps echo. Could rituals performed here have involved chanting, rhythm, or altered states of awareness? Was the chamber a place not just for the dead, but for interaction between the living and something they believed lay beyond? Others wonder whether the bones themselves tell a more complex story. The mixing of remains, the apparent lack of individual graves, does this reflect equality in death, or a belief system in which identity dissolved into collective ancestry? And why were only certain members of the community placed here? Selection implies meaning. What complicates every interpretation is absence. There are no carvings inside the chamber, no inscriptions, no clear iconography to guide us. The stones are plain, functional, almost austere. Meaning must be inferred from form, context, and comparison. And inference, by nature, leaves room for doubt. Standing beneath the capstone today, one feels the weight not only of stone, but of time. The structure is stable, yet it seems to hover between worlds, between purpose and mystery, between what we can document and what we can only imagine. Like the sacred wells of Sardinia and the fallen menhir of Brittany, Tinkinswood resists a single explanation. It is at once a tomb, a monument, and a question carved into the landscape. The people who built this chamber knew exactly why they did so. They understood its meaning, its role, its necessity. That knowledge did not vanish suddenly. It faded gradually, as languages changed, as cultures layered over one another, as memory became legend. And so we are left here, in the Welsh countryside, looking at stones that have outlived their story. Was this place meant to honor the dead, to guide the living, or to anchor something far more abstract, belief, time, continuity itself? The chamber does not answer. It waits. And in that waiting, it reminds us how much of the human past still stands before us, visible and solid, yet quietly out of reach. From the quiet green fields of South Wales, where Tinkinswood's massive stones still hold the weight of millennia, our journey moves northwest, tracing the Atlantic coast to another land where the past rises boldly from the earth. In Brittany, northern France, atop a gently sloping promontory overlooking the sea, lies a monument both immense and intimate, a testament to human ambition, skill, and the enduring question of purpose. This is the Cairn of Barnenez. At first glance, Barnenez is a hill crowned with stone, but closer inspection reveals a construction of staggering scale, more than 75 meters long, up to 25 meters wide, and composed of hundreds of massive stones arranged into a complex series of chambers and passageways. Built during the early Neolithic, around 4,800 BCE, it is one of the oldest megalithic monuments in Europe, predating even Stonehenge by centuries. The cairn is a labyrinth of purpose, chambers, dry stone walls, and carefully shaped capstones, many bearing traces of intricate carvings and geometric patterns. To walk among them is to feel the weight of an unknown hand guiding each placement, each choice deliberate yet inscrutable. Mainstream archaeology identifies Barnenez primarily as a funerary monument. Excavations have uncovered human remains, fragments of pottery, and other ritual objects, supporting the view that these chambers were places of burial, reverence, and possibly social cohesion. The alignment of certain chambers with celestial events, solstices and equinoxes, adds an astronomical dimension to the structure, suggesting that its builders were attentive not only to stone and soil, but to cycles of sun and sky. In this interpretation, Barnenez represents the intersection of life and death, earth and cosmos, individual and community. Yet the sheer scale of the construction invites further questions. The stones are enormous, some weighing several tons, quarried and transported across uneven terrain. The effort required to assemble them, without metal tools, wheels, or modern machinery, is staggering. Why commit so much labor to a burial site in an era when survival itself demanded ingenuity? The complexity of the chambers, some stacked, some interconnected, indicates not a single, simple purpose, but layers of function and meaning, perhaps evolving over generations. Was this merely a monumental tomb, or did it serve additional roles we have yet to understand? Barnenez also presents anomalies that challenge straightforward explanations. Some chambers appear older than others, suggesting multiple phases of construction and use. Certain stones bear carvings whose meaning remains undeciphered, simple geometric motifs that may hold symbolic significance lost to time. Elsewhere, the cairn's dry stone walls demonstrate advanced understanding of stability and weight distribution, hinting at engineering knowledge that seems surprisingly sophisticated for its age. How did these early builders develop techniques so precise, and why was such care necessary in a context that remains, in part, enigmatic? Speculative interpretations arise in response to these puzzles. Some researchers have suggested that Barnenez functioned as a ceremonial center, a place where the living and dead interacted through ritual, storytelling, and perhaps even astronomical observation. Others highlight the acoustic qualities of the chambers, noting that sound travels in unexpected ways through the stone corridors. Could the cairn have been designed to amplify voices, chants, or music during ceremonies? Might sound itself have been an element of the sacred experience? Further intrigue emerges when considering Barnenez in relation to other contemporary sites across Brittany and Western Europe. The density of megalithic constructions in this region, from dolmens to passage graves, suggests a shared culture of monumental building. Was knowledge transmitted across communities, or did similar innovations emerge independently, guided by common needs, beliefs, or cosmological observations? And what does this imply about the social organization of Neolithic societies? Barnenez is not isolated. It is part of a network of human intention etched in stone, yet the meaning of that network remains largely invisible. Even the cairn's orientation invites reflection. Certain chambers align with the rising or setting sun at key times of year, yet some alignments are subtle, almost imperceptible. Were these markers for agricultural planning, religious observances, or symbolic gestures beyond our understanding? Did the builders intend for the structure to communicate with those who came after them? Or was its significance entirely private, known only to the community that labored for generations to create it? Standing today at Barnenez, the experience is humbling. The monument is both solid and delicate, a testament to human effort that feels almost impossible to reconcile with its age. Sunlight casts shadows along the irregular stones, tracing patterns that have shifted over nearly 7,000 years. Wind whispers through the passages as if the cairn itself exhales memory into the landscape. It is easy to imagine generations of builders returning to the site, repeating ceremonies, moving stones, observing the sky, and contemplating mysteries that remain hidden to us now. Like the sacred wells of Sardinia, the Menhir of Locmariaquer, and the chambers of Tinkinswood, Barnenez challenges assumptions about early human capability and intent. Its stones do not speak in words. They speak in presence, in scale, in geometry and alignment. They invite observation, reflection, and wonder. Each chamber, each wall, each carved motif is evidence of intention, yet the intention is only partially visible to us. And so, the cairn remains a question cast in stone. Was it a tomb, a temple, an astronomical observatory, or some combination of these? Did it serve the living as much as the dead? And what knowledge of engineering, cosmology, ritual, or human psychology has been lost with time, leaving only this enduring, silent monument behind? Barnenez holds its secrets firmly, yet its presence ensures that curiosity continues, inviting us to stand, to look, and to imagine what might still be hidden within its ancient stones. From the windswept coastlines of Brittany, where the Cairn of Barnenez rises like a frozen wave of stone, our journey now moves southeast, tracing the flow of human settlement along rivers that have nourished civilizations for millennia. Deep in the Iron Gates region along the Danube River, on the border of modern-day Serbia, lies a site that feels unlike any other we have visited, a place where stone, water, and human imagination converge in ways that still defy simple explanation. This is Lepenski Vir. Perched on terraces overlooking the swift current of the Danube, Lepenski Vir presents a landscape of soft slopes and rocky outcrops. Here, one is struck by an unusual order amid natural forms. Low, trapezoidal stone foundations arranged across the settlement, often in regular patterns, as if the builders were sketching geometry directly onto the earth. From above, these layouts appear almost schematic, an intentional dialogue between architecture and environment. To walk among them is to feel the echo of hands shaping stone to match both human purpose and the river's rhythm. Lepenski Vir flourished during the Mesolithic period, roughly between 9,500 and 6,000 BCE, long before large urban centers or metallurgy. Archaeologists have uncovered more than 100 house foundations, each with its distinct trapezoidal plan, sometimes incorporating hearths or stone benches. Sculptures of human figures with fish-like features have been found alongside the foundations, carved from local sandstone and arranged as part of the settlement's spatial design. Together, these elements suggest a culture deeply attuned to the river and the cycles of life it supported, a society where survival, ritual, and art were intertwined. The mainstream view interprets the stone layouts as residential structures, carefully designed for habitation and social organization. The trapezoidal shape, unique to this site, may have been practical, offering stability on the terraced riverbanks while maximizing interior space. The placement of the houses in relation to one another suggests awareness of community planning, perhaps even an early form of urban thought, long before cities as we know them existed. Yet the arrangements invite questions that exceed practical considerations. The repetition of trapezoidal forms, aligned along precise orientations, hints at intentional geometry beyond mere shelter. Some foundations appear aligned with celestial events, particularly the winter solstice, when the rising sun casts light across specific points of the settlement. Could the arrangement of houses and stone benches have been a calendar of sorts, a way to mark time and seasons for a people whose life depended on fishing, hunting, and gathering? And if so, what does this say about their knowledge of astronomy, observation, and the subtle movements of the sun and river? Further intrigue comes from the sculptural elements. Human-fish hybrids, carved in sandstone and often found in proximity to the foundations, suggest a worldview where humans and the natural world were closely intertwined. Some researchers propose that these figures were spiritual guardians, embodying the Danube itself, or ancestors transformed through myth into symbolic forms. Others speculate that the placement of these sculptures within the settlement layout indicates ritual significance, an intentional interaction between stone, human activity, and the environment. The degree of planning at Lepenski Vir continues to astonish. Stones were quarried from the terraces themselves, shaped to fit the intended foundations with surprising precision. Each house required careful leveling and adjustment, suggesting the use of measurement or tacit knowledge passed across generations. How did a Mesolithic society develop such technical and organizational skill without what we think of as formal engineering? Were these purely practical solutions refined through trial and error, or was there a conceptual framework guiding each placement? Speculative interpretations stretch even further. Some researchers have suggested that Lepenski Vir functioned as a ceremonial or astronomical center as much as a settlement. The regularity of the stone layouts, combined with the solar alignments and sculptural elements, could indicate a sophisticated symbolic system. Others note acoustic peculiarities. Certain configurations might have amplified sound across the settlement, transforming voices or instruments into shared experiences. Could these spaces have been designed for storytelling, ritual, or collective performance, integrating sensory experience into the built environment? Comparisons with other early European settlements are equally tantalizing. While trapezoidal foundations are unique to Lepenski Vir, the concept of aligning structures with celestial or environmental markers appears elsewhere, from the Mediterranean to Scandinavia. Was knowledge traveling along river corridors long before large-scale trade networks? Or did similar solutions arise independently, shaped by universal human concerns, survival, social cohesion, and the need to mark time and place? As with Barnenez, Tinkinswood, and the Nuragic wells, Lepenski Vir presents a tension between function and mystery. Its stone layouts are practical yet deliberate, familiar yet enigmatic. The settlement speaks of human ingenuity, yet resists complete comprehension. Its inhabitants left no written records, only their careful placement of stone, their sculptures, and their interaction with the river. These artifacts communicate across millennia, but in a language partially obscured by time. Standing on the terraces today, overlooking the Danube and tracing the outlines of the foundations, one senses both intimacy and grandeur. The settlement conveys rhythm, order, and purpose, yet refuses a single interpretation. Did the houses serve the living, the dead, or both? Were they homes, ritual spaces, or cosmic markers? And what knowledge, astronomical, architectural, symbolic, was embedded in their design that has not survived in written form? In Lepenski Vir, as in the other monuments we have explored, human intent is tangible but elusive. Stones and sculptures endure, yet the meaning behind their arrangement is partially lost. The site reminds us that even in the earliest settlements, humans shaped their environment with awareness and imagination, leaving behind structures that are at once functional, symbolic, and profoundly mysterious. And in that mystery lies the invitation to observe, to reflect, and to wonder what else might remain hidden along the river's edge, waiting to reveal its secrets. From the organized precision of Lepenski Vir, where stone foundations trace a society's dialogue with river and sky, our journey now returns to the windswept moors and rugged coastlines of the British Isles. Here the landscape is smaller in scale, but no less enigmatic. Nestled in the heart of Cornwall, amidst rolling fields and low granite hills, lies a collection of standing stones whose quiet presence belies the centuries they have witnessed. This is Men-an-Tol. The site is deceptively simple at first glance. 3 small stones, weathered by wind and rain, arranged in a formation that is at once deliberate and puzzling. The central stone is circular, a perfect ring of granite standing upright, flanked by 2 smaller, upright stones. The ring itself is small enough for a person to pass through, yet it commands attention, framed by the rough landscape of moor and hill. There is a sense of intentionality here, a precision that has endured despite millennia of exposure. Men-an-Tol dates broadly to the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age, approximately 4000 to 1500 BCE, placing it within a period of intense megalithic activity across Cornwall and the wider British Isles. Archaeological investigation has revealed little in terms of artifacts, leaving much of the site's purpose open to interpretation. Nearby settlements suggest a human presence over centuries, yet this small grouping of stones stands apart, removed from domestic life, its meaning not immediately apparent. The mainstream view regards Men-an-Tol as a ritual site, possibly connected to fertility or healing practices. Folklore collected in later centuries associates the ring stone with protective or curative properties, suggesting that passing through it, particularly for children, was thought to confer health or luck. Such practices are difficult to substantiate archaeologically, yet the persistence of oral tradition hints at a continuity of meaning, even if transformed over time. Could the stone's round shape, rare among British standing stones, have symbolized cycles of life, death, or the moon? The site's alignment and spatial relationships also invite scrutiny. The 2 flanking stones frame the ring in a way that is not random. Observers have noted that sunlight at certain times of year, particularly during solstices, passes through the ring in striking patterns. Was this intentional, a form of solar observation, or an accidental consequence of placement? And if intentional, what knowledge of astronomy, movement of celestial bodies, or ritual calendar might the builders have possessed? Even more mysterious are the variations of local legend and historical anecdote. Some tales describe the stones as a gateway between worlds, a portal connecting the living and the dead, or humans and spirits. Others suggest that couples or children passing through the ring would receive blessings, protection, or fertility. While such stories cannot be verified, they underscore the stone's enduring impact on human imagination, echoing the ritualistic and symbolic function inferred from other megalithic sites, from the Cairn of Barnenez to Lepenski Vir. Speculative interpretations extend further. Could the Men-an-Tol stones have served as markers in a broader network of Neolithic or Bronze Age sacred sites across Cornwall? Some researchers have suggested that small stone circles, rings, and standing stones functioned as waypoints along ritual landscapes, connecting settlements, water sources, and astronomical phenomena. In this context, the stones are simultaneously intimate and expansive, a microcosm of a belief system encoded into the terrain itself. The physicality of the stones adds to the mystery. The ring stone, despite its modest size, is balanced precisely upright, a feat that would have required deliberate effort and understanding of weight and stability. Its flanking companions are smaller but no less carefully positioned. This suggests attention to form and proportion, an aesthetic or symbolic sensibility that exceeds simple utility. Were the builders guided by practical considerations alone, or did symbolic, ritual, or even acoustic factors influence placement? Acoustic potential, in particular, has been noted at similar megalithic sites. Stones can reflect, resonate, and amplify sound, creating experiences of voice or music that alter perception. At Men-an-Tol, passing through the ring produces a subtle change in sound and space, heightening awareness of the body and environment. Could such effects have been intentionally exploited in ceremony, healing, or initiation? Or are they an unintended byproduct of careful construction? Like the monuments we have explored before, Men-an-Tol straddles the line between the mundane and the extraordinary. Its simplicity conceals complexity. Its scale is small, yet its impact is enduring. It invites movement, observation, and reflection. Yet it offers no written record, no definitive explanation. Each visitor must interpret the stone according to presence, intuition, and context, as generations have done before. Standing before Men-an-Tol today, it is impossible not to sense continuity with the human experience across millennia. The stones connect us to hands that shaped, placed, and aligned them, to eyes that observed sun, moon, and landscape, and to beliefs whose specifics may be lost, yet whose resonance remains. The site is both accessible and distant, intimate and monumental, a reminder that even small stones can hold enormous mystery. And so, like Lepenski Vir's geometric houses, Barnenez's massive cairn, or the sacred wells of Sardinia, Men-an-Tol leaves us with questions rather than answers. Was this a gateway, a healing site, a celestial marker, or some combination of all three? How much knowledge and intention lies hidden in its arrangement, waiting for careful observation or imagination to uncover it? The stones do not speak in words, yet their presence continues to challenge, inspire, and invite wonder, asking us to consider what else might remain concealed in the landscapes of our prehistoric past. From the rugged granite of Cornwall, where Men-an-Tol's stones frame human curiosity in miniature, our journey now crosses the ocean to the arid foothills of coastal Peru. Here, the landscape is stark and sun-baked, and the air shimmers with heat over the desert plains. Rising from this harsh terrain is a structure both linear and deliberate, a construction that speaks of observation, measurement, and a fascination with the movements of the heavens. This is Chankillo. Perched on a ridge in the Chasma Valley, the Chankillo site immediately commands attention. From a distance, it appears almost abstract. 13 evenly spaced stone towers, rising like sentinels along the crest of a hill, connected by low walls and interspersed with ceremonial platforms. Below the ridge lies a fortified settlement and temples, hinting at a community that invested energy, planning, and labor into both daily life and ritual practice. The arrangement of the towers, however, is unlike anything in the surrounding desert, a linear array stretching nearly 500 meters, aligned with exacting precision. Chankillo dates to approximately 500 BCE, during the pre-Inca Casma Sechin culture, a society that thrived along the northern coast of Peru. Archaeologists have identified the towers as part of an ancient solar observatory, capable of tracking the sun's movement across the horizon throughout the year. From specific observation points, the sun rises and sets in alignment with the edges of the towers during solstices and equinoxes, creating a natural calendar. This precision reflects a deep understanding of astronomical cycles, remarkable in a culture without written records or modern instruments. The mainstream interpretation identifies Chankillo as a solar observatory with practical applications. Knowledge of the sun's movements would have been essential for agricultural planning, regulating planting and harvest cycles in a desert environment where rainfall was scarce and timing was critical. The towers may also have served ceremonial purposes, connecting solar observation to ritual life, social cohesion, and the veneration of celestial bodies. In this sense, Chankillo embodies both science and spirituality, a society tracking time and meaning in equal measure. Yet the more one studies the site, the more questions emerge. Why 13 towers? Why the linear arrangement along the ridge rather than a circular pattern, as is common in many ancient observatories? And why were observation points located some distance from the towers, requiring careful positioning and movement across the landscape to interpret the sun's path? The design suggests that precision, repetition, and visibility were central concerns. Could there be symbolic significance to the number, the spacing, or the alignment beyond practical observation? Chankillo also presents mysteries in its broader architectural context. Nearby ceremonial platforms, fortifications, and residential areas suggest a complex society capable of sustained labor organization. The effort required to quarry, transport, and erect the stone towers, each up to 5 meters high, would have been significant. What social structures, knowledge systems, and cultural priorities enabled such a construction? And what role did the towers play in daily life, purely observational, symbolic, or both? Speculative interpretations add further intrigue. Some researchers propose that Chankillo functioned not only as a solar observatory, but also as a ritual or initiation site. The alignment of the towers with the rising and setting sun could have been integrated into ceremonies marking seasonal transitions, agricultural cycles, or even social hierarchy. Others suggest that the tower's linearity may reflect a symbolic mapping of time itself, a physical representation of the solar year, enabling participants to read the calendar in space. The interplay between architecture, landscape, and human perception invites us to consider the site as an interface between observation, ritual, and meaning. Acoustic and visual effects at Chankillo, while less studied than at European megaliths, raise additional questions. The spacing and height of the towers could create sightlines and shadows that change over the year, turning the ridge itself into a visual instrument. Did the builders notice and manipulate these effects intentionally, using them as part of teaching, ceremony, or measurement? And if so, what cultural or symbolic significance did these effects carry for those who lived here? Chankillo also challenges assumptions about early astronomical knowledge. Its precision suggests systematic observation over many years, careful record-keeping, and intergenerational transmission of knowledge, all without writing or numeric notation as we know them. How did a society without written records conceptualize, communicate, and preserve such complex information? And why is such a remarkable observatory so little known in the broader narrative of ancient technological achievement? Standing on the ridge today, looking along the line of towers toward the horizon, one senses both grandeur and restraint. The desert stretches endlessly, yet human intention marks it with clarity. The towers endure, weathered but precise, offering glimpses into a worldview where the sun governed life, ritual, and knowledge alike. Observers can imagine the movement of people tracing solar paths, marking seasons, celebrating cycles of existence, and coordinating labor and ceremony across years and generations. Like the monuments we have explored across Europe and the Mediterranean, Chankillo presents a tension between the practical and the mysterious. It is both functional and symbolic, scientific and ceremonial, tangible yet elusive in its full meaning. Its towers speak not in words, but in alignment, in measurement, in careful observation of the sky and landscape. They invite reflection, interpretation, and wonder, even millennia after they were built. And so, as with Men-an-Tol, Lepenski, and Barnenez, Chankillo leaves us with questions rather than answers. Why this particular site, this configuration, this number of towers? How much knowledge, astronomical, architectural, ceremonial, was embedded here that has not survived in text or artifact? The observatory remains, precise yet enigmatic, challenging us to consider what else may lie hidden in the intersection of human ingenuity, ritual, and the rhythms of the natural world. From the sun-drenched deserts of Peru, where the Chankillo towers mark the passage of the solar year with deliberate precision, our journey now carries us to the opposite side of the world. Across oceans and hemispheres, in the remote and rugged ranges of New Zealand's central North Island, the landscape shifts from sun-baked ridges to dense forest, steep gullies and volcanic outcrops. Here, amid the Kaimanawa Ranges, lies a structure that is small in scale but enormous in intrigue: the Kaimanawa Wall. The site emerges suddenly from thick bush and volcanic scree. A linear arrangement of stones, some stacked with apparent intent, traces across the hillside, partially hidden by ferns and undergrowth. Unlike the monumental cairns of Europe or the precision towers of Chankillo, the wall is modest, perhaps just over a meter in height, but its construction hints at purpose beyond mere coincidence. The stones vary in size, some smooth and uniform, others rough-hewn, yet they form a continuous alignment that follows the contour of the slope. Sunlight glances across the wall in fleeting patterns, emphasizing the care with which the builders placed each stone. Mainstream geologists and archaeologists classify the formation as a natural arrangement, or, at most, a byproduct of early pastoral activity. Rocks cleared from farmland, or terracing from colonial sheep runs. From this perspective, the wall is incidental, a product of environmental and human forces rather than deliberate construction. Yet, when studied on site, questions arise that challenge this conventional explanation. The alignment is too straight, the interlocking of certain stones too deliberate, to dismiss as accidental. Could natural forces alone produce such consistency along a slope with varying gradients? The history of the Kaimanawa Wall is difficult to trace. New Zealand's written record begins with European settlement in the 19th century, but the land itself had been inhabited for centuries by Maori, whose own oral traditions do not explicitly reference the structure. Its isolation, hidden in a remote mountain range, accessible only by steep, often treacherous paths, means that systematic archaeological study has been limited. Surveys suggest that the stones may date well before European contact, yet without carbon-datable material embedded in the wall, definitive chronology remains elusive. Speculative interpretations emerge from this uncertainty. Some propose that the wall could be a remnant of an unknown pre-Maori culture, predating Polynesian settlement entirely. Others suggest the possibility of a ritual or boundary function, echoing similar stone alignments found in prehistoric landscapes around the world. Could the wall have marked sacred space, hunting territories, or astronomical observation points, Its orientation relative to surrounding peaks, valleys, and the rising and setting sun invites these questions, though evidence remains circumstantial. The construction itself raises further intrigue. Certain stones appear deliberately stacked to create stability, while others interlock in ways that prevent easy collapse. In some sections, the wall exhibits a subtle curvature that matches the topography, suggesting careful planning. How was this knowledge transmitted in a society without written records? What tools or techniques allowed early builders to select, shape, and position stones in challenging terrain? And if the wall's purpose was symbolic rather than practical, what ideas guided its creation? Some researchers point to parallels with other ancient stone structures worldwide. Linear stone alignments appear in Europe, the Americas, and Asia, often associated with ritual, astronomy, or territorial demarcation. Could the Kaimanawa Wall represent an isolated instance of a broader human tendency to mark the landscape with deliberate patterns, connecting space, observation, and belief? Or does it suggest knowledge and skill otherwise unrecognized in the prehistory of this region? Further mystery emerges from its location. The Kaimanawa ranges are geologically active, shaped by volcanic flows, earthquakes, and erosion over millennia. That the wall persists amid such dynamic forces speaks to both its resilience and its potential significance. Was its placement chosen for stability, symbolism, or both? Could the builders have anticipated the shifting landscape, or did the wall acquire meaning through its endurance alone? As with Chankillo, Men-an-Tol, and Lepenski the wall invites questions about human intention, knowledge, and perception. Passing alongside it, one senses deliberate effort, yet the cultural context remains hidden. Did this structure serve the living, the dead, or some purpose now lost to memory? Was it functional, ceremonial, symbolic, or a combination of all three? The absence of definitive artifacts leaves these questions open, yet the wall's presence compels investigation and reflection. Standing before the Kaimanawa Wall today, amid thick bush and jagged rocks, one is struck by the intersection of scale, isolation, and ambiguity. The stones are quiet, yet they assert themselves through alignment, placement, and persistence. Sunlight illuminates them briefly through the canopy, shadow and light tracing their contours, emphasizing form that has endured unseen for centuries. The wall occupies a liminal space between natural process and human agency, inviting both observation and speculation. And so, like the solar towers of Chankillo, the small stones of Men-an-Tol, and the monumental foundations of Lepenski the Kaimanawa Wall challenges assumptions. It is modest, yet deliberate, remote, yet undeniably human. Its meaning, purpose, and origin remain uncertain, leaving us with questions rather than answers. Was it a boundary, a marker, a spiritual tool, or something entirely beyond our comprehension? The wall endures, silent yet insistent, asking us to consider not only what was built, but what has been forgotten, and what might still be hidden in the landscapes of human history. From the remote Kaimanawa ranges, where stones quietly mark human intention amid wild terrain, our exploration now returns to a continent shaped by ancient civilizations and enduring landscapes. East across the African Rift Valley, where highlands meet sweeping plains, the land rises again into mystery. Here, in the northern reaches of Ethiopia, the city of Axum and its surrounding plateaus hold remnants of structures that predate written records, but speak with monumental presence. These are the Axumite Proto-Megaliths. Rising from sun-baked soil and jagged basalt outcrops, the Axumite Proto-Megaliths immediately command attention. Unlike the modest alignment of the Kaimanawa Wall, these stones are immense, vertically imposing, and intricately carved. Some resemble early stelae, upright slabs tapering toward the top, but evidence suggests that earlier phases of construction preceded the iconic obelisks, for which Axum is famous. Foundations of massive, unadorned stones hint at structures whose scale rivals later megalithic achievements, yet whose precise function remains elusive. The landscape itself, volcanic ridges, fertile valleys, and shifting plateaus, frames these stones as though the earth itself participates in their presence. Mainstream archaeology situates Axum as the heart of the Axumite kingdom, which flourished roughly from the 1st to 8th centuries CE. The later stelae and tombs are associated with royalty, religious significance, and burial practices. The Proto-Megaliths, however, predate much of this historical context, raising questions about continuity, influence, and lost cultural knowledge. Some stones may date as far back as 1000 BCE or earlier, suggesting a tradition of monumental construction that spans multiple generations and phases of societal development. These proto-megaliths often consist of massive slabs laid horizontally or vertically, sometimes aligned in linear or grid-like patterns. Some appear to form the foundations of structures. Others suggest ritual or symbolic arrangements. Unlike later stelae, they lack inscriptions or overt decorative motifs, leaving their purpose ambiguous. Were they early tomb markers, territorial boundaries, or ceremonial spaces? And why choose such precise orientation in a landscape that, to an untrained eye, seems irregular and challenging to work with? One of the most striking features of the proto-megaliths is their engineering. The stones were quarried from local basalt, transported over uneven terrain, and positioned with care, demonstrating an understanding of balance, stability, and spatial organization. How were such heavy blocks moved and aligned without advanced machinery? Did the builders employ wooden levers, rolling logs, coordinated labor, or techniques now lost to time? And was the effort motivated purely by practical or symbolic purpose, or some combination of both? Speculation deepens when examining potential alignments with celestial or environmental markers. Some proto-megaliths appear positioned along sightlines with surrounding hills or valleys, suggesting observational use. Could these structures have tracked seasonal shifts, rainfall patterns, or the sun and moon's movements? If so, what knowledge and observation were required to achieve this precision, and how was that knowledge passed between generations in a culture that relied on oral transmission and practical experience? Further intrigue arises from the scale and complexity of the constructions. While smaller than the later stelae, these proto-megaliths demonstrate a level of ambition and planning that indicates centralized organization. Was this an early indication of social hierarchy or community coordination that later defined the Axumite kingdom? And if so, why does the archaeological record offer so few clues about the people who undertook these monumental tasks, leaving only stone as evidence? Comparisons with other ancient megalithic sites globally reveal both similarities and unique aspects. Like Chankillo's towers, Barnenez's cairns, or Lepenski-Veer's foundations, the Axumite proto-megaliths combine functionality with symbolic resonance. Yet, unlike European or South American examples, these stones occupy a landscape shaped by volcanic activity, shifting soils, and extreme elevations. The builders not only worked with stone, they worked with land, gravity, and geology in a way that feels deliberate, almost intuitive. Could this intimate relationship with environment reflect ritual beliefs, practical necessity, or both? Some speculative theories go further still. A few researchers suggest that the proto-megaliths may have been part of a ritual landscape linked to ancestral veneration, cosmology, or early proto-religious practice. Others have proposed that the structures could have functioned as early urban planning markers, mapping sacred or civic space in a society yet to develop written records. The truth may lie somewhere between these possibilities, in a blend of utility, symbolism, and cultural memory that we can only partially reconstruct. Standing today amidst these stones, the sense of scale and intention is palpable. The proto-megaliths dominate the eye and imagination alike, their presence undeniable even when their meaning remains hidden. Shadows stretch across the basalt slabs as the sun moves across the highlands, casting patterns that hint at order, alignment, and perhaps purpose. The landscape is alive with echoes of human effort, observation, and intention that have endured for millennia. Like Men-an-Tol, Kaimanawa, Chankillo, and the other sites we have explored, the Axumite Proto-Megaliths confront us with questions rather than answers. Were they early tombs, ritual markers, astronomical instruments, or symbols of social organization? How much knowledge of engineering, observation, and communal effort was embedded in their construction? And what does their endurance tell us about the human desire to leave a mark on the land, even when the meaning of that mark may fade over generations? The stones themselves remain silent, yet their arrangement, scale, and persistence demand reflection. They are remnants of human ambition, observation, and creativity, set within a landscape that continues to challenge understanding. And in their silence lies the invitation to observe, to wonder, and to consider what might still be hidden in the highlands of Axum, waiting to reveal the story of a people whose ingenuity has shaped stone, landscape, and history alike. From the highlands of Axum, where ancient proto-megaliths rise like silent sentinels over volcanic plateaus, our journey now moves eastward, across continents and cultures, to the mist-laden hills of northeast India. Here, in the remote landscapes of Assam, a landscape of rolling hills, dense forests, and river valleys, cradled by the Brahmaputra, the earth holds another enigma, one that is as monumental in curiosity as it is in stone. This is the land of the megalithic jars. Scattered across hilltops and ridges in the upper Assam region, the jars immediately capture attention. They are immense, cylindrical or slightly conical stone vessels, some standing over 3 meters tall, hollowed from solid rock. Their surfaces are rough-hewn yet purposeful, shaped by human hands with care and skill. Many are carved from granite, basalt, or sandstone, sourced from quarries often located kilometers away. The jars rest directly on the earth, sometimes alone, sometimes in groups numbering dozens, forming patterns across the terrain that suggest deliberate placement rather than chance. Archaeologists date these jars to between 500 BCE and 500 CE, situating them within the broader South and Southeast Asian megalithic traditions. Unlike European standing stones or Axumite stelae, the jars are hollowed out, almost as if ready to hold something, or someone. Excavations in some sites have revealed traces of human remains, ashes, and occasional burial goods. This has led to the prevailing interpretation. The jars served as funerary vessels, or urns, part of a burial practice intended to honor the dead. Yet many jars remain unexplored, and their interiors often empty, leaving room for questions about variability of use, duration, and cultural significance. The scale of the jars is particularly striking. The largest examples would have required immense labor to quarry, transport, hollow, and position. Some are placed near cliff edges, others on steep hillsides, suggesting an awareness of topography and gravity, as well as social organization capable of coordinating teams across challenging terrain. How were such massive stones moved without wheeled vehicles? Did the communities use logs, ropes, and sheer human effort, or techniques lost to history? And why choose such dramatic elevated locations for burial, sometimes where the jars are exposed to the elements for centuries? Beyond logistics, the jars themselves provoke further speculation. Many exhibit subtle variations in shape, size, and surface treatment. Could these differences signify social status, age, or ritual function? Some jars are decorated with carved bands, rims, or incised motifs, though the meaning of these embellishments is obscure. Were they symbolic markers, tribal identifiers, or purely aesthetic? The absence of written records leaves interpretation largely in the hands of observation, comparison, and conjecture. The placement of the jars across hilltops also raises intriguing possibilities. From certain vantage points, the jars appear to align along natural axes, valleys, or ridges. Could these placements have corresponded to celestial events, the rising sun or seasonal cycles essential to agricultural or ceremonial life? Did the landscape itself act as a kind of map or calendar, integrating observation, ritual, and social cohesion into one experience? And if so, how much knowledge of astronomy or environmental observation was embedded in this megalithic practice? Speculative theories abound, ranging from the practical to the symbolic. Some researchers suggest that jars may have been part of mortuary rituals involving excarnation or exposure before interment, with the vessels serving as temporary or symbolic containers for the deceased. Others propose that the jars functioned as boundary markers, territorial statements, or ceremonial spaces for communal gatherings. The regularity of groupings, the orientation of certain jars, and their location on prominent hills all hint at intentionality that goes beyond mere burial utility. Comparisons with other megalithic traditions around the world are compelling, like the Kaimanawa Wall in New Zealand or the Axumite Proto-Megaliths. The megalithic jars reflect a human desire to shape the landscape according to social, spiritual, or symbolic imperatives. Yet their form, a hollow vessel, often standing empty, remains distinctive, challenging assumptions about the relationship between function and meaning. Were these jars utilitarian, ceremonial, or did their significance lie in their presence and positioning within the natural landscape? The jar's endurance adds another layer to their mystery. Centuries of monsoon rains, seismic activity, and human interaction have weathered their surfaces, yet the stones remain upright, resolute, and commanding. How did early builders ensure such durability in a region prone to environmental stress? Was the choice of stone and site informed by practical knowledge, ritual beliefs, or both? And what might have been lost over the centuries, stories, ceremonies, and knowledge that could illuminate the intentions of those who built them? Standing among the megalithic jars today, one senses a dialogue between human labor, natural forces, and time itself. The stones are at once monumental and intimate, silent yet evocative. Their arrangement across the hills invites exploration, reflection, and curiosity, just as they have inspired wonder for generations. Walking between them, it is impossible not to consider the lives they commemorated, the hands that shaped them, and the knowledge embedded in their placement. And so, like the Axumite Proto-Megaliths, the Kaimanawa Wall, and Chankillo's solar towers, the megalithic jars of Assam resist simple interpretation. Are they tombs, ceremonial instruments, territorial markers, or something entirely beyond our understanding? How much of the knowledge of quarrying, transport, ritual, and symbolism has been lost to time, leaving only these silent stones as evidence? The jars endure, imposing yet enigmatic, inviting us to reflect on the ingenuity, intention, and mystery of the people who shaped them, and to wonder what else might still be hidden among the hills and forests of Assam. From the misty hills and forested valleys of Assam, where the megalithic jars quietly mark human ritual across time, our journey now returns westward to the rugged coastline of Brittany, France. Here, the landscape unfolds into gently rolling plains, punctuated by the occasional hill and river. Yet it is the earth itself that holds a secret, an expanse of stone laid with deliberation, extending for kilometers across the Breton countryside. These are the Carnac peripheral alignments. At first, the scale is difficult to comprehend. From the ground, the megaliths appear as rows of solitary standing stones, some barely reaching a meter in height, others more imposing, each weathered by millennia of wind and rain. Yet as the eye traces their paths across fields and hills, a pattern emerges. Thousands of stones arranged in long, parallel lines, radiating outward in subtle curves and alignments, stretching across more than 4 kilometers in some sectors. The lines are not random. They form networks of order that defy the natural chaos of the landscape. Archaeologists date the primary alignments to the Neolithic period, roughly 4,500 to 3,300 BCE, making them contemporary with other European megalithic sites, yet unparalleled in density and scale. Excavations and surveys reveal that the stones were carefully shaped, some featuring carved surfaces, and set into the earth with attention to balance and stability. Unlike single monuments or cairns, the peripheral alignments are expansive, suggesting a vision that spans not years but generations, an undertaking requiring sustained labor, planning, and communal coordination. The mainstream interpretation emphasizes ritual and social significance. The lines may have marked sacred space, processional pathways, or gathering points for ceremonies tied to celestial events. Many alignments orient toward solstices, equinoxes, or notable landmarks, indicating a sophisticated understanding of the sun's movements and possibly the moon's cycles. Some researchers suggest that the peripheral alignments delineated territory or structured the ritual landscape, creating zones for living, gathering, and ceremonial activity. Yet, as with other monumental constructions we have explored, questions arise that extend beyond practical explanation. Why arrange thousands of stones in precise rows when simpler configurations would suffice for ritual or territorial purposes? What determined the subtle curves, the spacing, and the varying heights of individual stones? Could the alignments encode astronomical, calendrical, or symbolic knowledge in ways that remain invisible to us today? And why choose such a vast, exposed landscape for this undertaking, where stones would be subject to centuries of weathering, human activity, and natural change? The peripheral alignments also present a challenge in interpretation because of their scale and fragmentation. Many stones have been moved, removed, or buried over millennia, leaving gaps in the original sequences. Yet even partial lines suggest intention, orientation, and design. The repetitive geometry of the placements conveys a sense of rhythm and structure, almost as if the builders inscribed a temporal or spatial pattern directly into the land. Was this an early attempt to map or measure time, the seasons, or social hierarchy? Or was the meaning primarily symbolic, a statement of communal identity or cosmological understanding? Speculative theories add layers of intrigue. Some researchers have proposed that the lines formed processional pathways, used during seasonal gatherings, rituals of initiation, or ceremonies linking the living and the dead. Others consider the possibility of astronomical functions, with sightlines and stone placements corresponding to solstitial sunrises, lunar cycles, or even notable stars. Could these alignments have served as a vast observational tool, translating the cosmos into a pattern of stone on Earth? And if so, how was such knowledge preserved and transmitted across generations? The engineering of the alignments itself inspires awe. Stones, often several tons in weight, were transported, shaped, and set in position with only rudimentary tools. Their placement demonstrates understanding of balance, spacing, and orientation, while the arrangement of thousands of individual stones across uneven terrain reflects careful planning and coordination. How did these communities organize labor over decades or centuries to realize a vision so expansive? And what social, religious, or cultural pressures motivated such sustained effort? The peripheral alignments, like the megalithic jars of Assam, Axumite Proto-Megaliths, and Kaimanawa Wall, invite reflection on human intent and perception. They combine physical presence with symbolic resonance, linking labor, landscape, and belief. Their scale transforms the observer's experience, drawing attention to patterns, repetition, and rhythm in the environment. Walking among the lines, one senses both the weight of human effort and the deliberate shaping of space and time into stone. Even today, the Carnac alignments retain their mystery. Scholars continue to debate their exact purpose, the sequence of construction, and the meaning embedded in orientation, spacing, and form. Some sections of the lines remain hidden beneath soil or pasture, while others are exposed to centuries of erosion and agriculture, complicating attempts to reconstruct their original design. Yet their very endurance attests to the vision and commitment of the people who erected them. Standing among these stones, one is struck by the sense of scale, order, and intentionality. The peripheral alignments stretch beyond the eye's reach, suggesting continuity and foresight. They invite observation, meditation, and speculation. Were these lines sacred pathways, astronomical instruments, territorial markers, or symbols of social cohesion? Or did they serve multiple purposes simultaneously, layering practical, ritual, and symbolic meaning across centuries? And so, like the megalithic jars of Assam, the Axumite Proto-Megaliths, and the Kaimanawa Wall, the Carnac peripheral alignments resist a single explanation. Their purpose is only partially revealed by archaeology. Their meaning remains layered, complex, and enigmatic. They stand as a testament to human ambition, observation, and ritual, inviting us to consider not only the stones themselves, but the knowledge, effort, and imagination required to place them, and to wonder what else might remain hidden beneath the Breton soil, waiting to reveal its secrets. From the windswept plains of Brittany, where the Carnac peripheral alignments stretch across fields like a deliberate inscription in stone, our exploration now carries us eastward, across the Caucasus and the Caspian lowlands, to a landscape shaped by volcanic plateaus, rugged cliffs, and open steppe. Here, in the semi-arid expanses of Qobustan, Azerbaijan, the earth bears a quiet testament to human presence over tens of millennia, a network of stone arrangements that continues to puzzle researchers. These are the Qobustan stone alignments. Scattered across undulating hills, rocky ridges, and dry riverbeds, the alignments present themselves with subtlety at first glance. Unlike monumental cairns or towering megaliths, these stones are often modest in size, yet their placement conveys unmistakable intention. Lines of rocks trace elongated paths, forming geometric patterns, circles, and occasional radial arrangements. Some stones are embedded flush with the ground. Others rise slightly, casting shadows that shift as the sun moves across the sky. The overall effect is understated but precise, suggesting observation, planning, and deliberate design. Mainstream archaeology situates Qobustan as a rich cultural landscape, inhabited intermittently from the Upper Paleolithic through the Bronze Age. The site is renowned for its rock art, featuring tens of thousands of petroglyphs depicting animals, humans, and abstract symbols. Within this context, the stone alignments are often interpreted as functional or symbolic extensions of human activity, boundary markers, ritual spaces, or indicators of seasonal or astronomical phenomena. Yet the alignment's precise purpose remains elusive, their patterns defying straightforward classification. Many of the arrangements appear to follow natural topography, aligning with ridges, valleys, or distant landmarks. Some researchers have noted that the linear sequences and circular groupings could correspond to solar or lunar observations, hinting at early knowledge of celestial cycles. Could these stones have functioned as primitive calendars, guiding seasonal movement, hunting, or ritual events? Or were they intended to mark sacred space, establishing a visible connection between humans, landscape, and the cosmos? The scale and subtlety of the Qobustan alignments present a challenge in interpretation. Unlike the imposing towers of Chankillo or the dense Carnac lines, these stones are often small, scattered, and understated. Their impact emerges through arrangement and pattern, rather than sheer size or weight. How did early inhabitants conceive of space in this way, imposing order and significance on the land without the dramatic scale of larger megalithic monuments? Was this a reflection of practical necessity, symbolic choice, or both? Speculative interpretations deepen the mystery. Some suggest that the alignments were used for ritual movement, processions, or initiation practices, with participants following stone paths as part of ceremonial observances. Others propose astronomical or calendrical functions, noting that certain lines seem oriented toward solstitial or equinoctial sunrise and sunset points. Could the Qobustan alignments have served multiple purposes simultaneously, blending practical observation with ritual expression and symbolic mapping of the environment? The construction of the alignments raises further questions. The stones are positioned with careful spacing, often in relation to one another, yet some sequences are interrupted, fragmented, or partially obscured by sediment and erosion. Were these intentional gaps markers of time or the result of centuries of natural disturbance? And how was knowledge of placement and pattern preserved across generations in a culture without written records? Qobustan's stone arrangements are also inseparable from the region's broader environmental and cultural context. The semi-arid steppe, volcanic hills, and meandering streams would have shaped daily life, survival strategies, and ritual practices. The alignments occupy prominent ridges and terraces, suggesting that visibility, both within the landscape and perhaps to the sky, was important. Were these spaces intended to be seen from afar, as communal markers, or only recognized by those moving along the paths, aware of the hidden patterns embedded in the stone? Comparisons with other ancient stone arrangements offer insight but also highlight the site's uniqueness. Like the Carnac alignments, Qobustan demonstrates repetition, rhythm, and geometry, yet the scale, topography, and subtlety set it apart. Unlike the monumental Axumite Proto-Megaliths or the megalithic jars of Assam, the stones rely less on size and more on spatial intelligence, inviting careful observation and contemplation. What does this tell us about the diversity of human approaches to shaping the landscape, encoding knowledge, and asserting meaning? Standing among the Qobustan stones today, one senses a dialogue between human intent, natural environment, and the passage of time. The arrangements are at once intimate and expansive, modest in form but deliberate in placement. Shadows shift across stones as the day passes, and the wind whispers through dry grasses, drawing attention to subtle alignments and geometric echoes. Each stone invites reflection on labor, observation, creativity, and the human desire to leave marks upon the world. As with Carnac, the megalithic jars, and Axum, the Qobustan stone alignments resist a single explanation. Were they ceremonial markers, astronomical tools, territorial indicators, or symbolic inscriptions in a landscape sacred to its ancient inhabitants? How much knowledge of geometry, observation, ritual, or social organization is encoded in their placement, now partially obscured by time and erosion? The stones endure, quietly commanding attention, their purpose partially hidden yet undeniably intentional. They ask us to consider not only what was built, but why it was built, and to imagine the hands, eyes, and minds that shaped them. And in their persistence lies the invitation to wonder, what other secrets remain hidden in the rocky terraces and valleys of Qobustan? waiting to reveal the ingenuity, observation, and imagination of those who walked these lands thousands of years ago. From the rocky ridges and petroglyph-rich terraces of Qobustan, where subtle stone alignments hint at human observation and ritual across millennia, our journey now returns to the western Mediterranean, to the island of Sardinia. Here, amidst rolling hills, limestone outcrops, and windswept plains, the landscape is dotted with enigmatic monuments, both grand and modest. Beyond the well-known Nuragic sacred wells and massive giants' graves, the island conceals a network of smaller, lesser-studied sites that continue to puzzle archaeologists and historians alike. These are the Sardinian giants' graves, minor sites. Scattered across valleys and hilltops, the minor graves appear as elongated stone structures, often partially submerged in earth and vegetation, their outlines sometimes faint against the landscape. Unlike the monumental giants' graves, such as Qobustan or Lemuri, these minor sites are smaller in scale, yet they share the same distinctive architectural vocabulary, a central corridor or chamber flanked by upright megaliths, capped by horizontal stones, sometimes ending in a semicircular exedra or forecourt. Their construction suggests familiarity with advanced stoneworking techniques, careful planning, and a coherent ritual or social framework. Archaeologists place these minor sites within the broader Bronze Age Nuragic culture, roughly 1800 to 1200 BCE, contemporary with the height of megalithic activity across Sardinia. While less imposing than the major graves, they were evidently significant to local communities. Excavations have revealed human remains, often fragmented or cremated, alongside ceramic fragments, tools, and occasional ornaments. Their scale, while modest, implies communal labor, with the stones transported from local quarries and arranged with precision despite the lack of metal tools as we understand them. The purpose of these minor sites, much like their larger counterparts, appears tied to funerary and ritual practices. They seem designed for collective interment, with corridors long enough to accommodate multiple burials over time. Yet their exact role in Nuragic cosmology remains obscure. Were they secondary burial sites, serving smaller or peripheral communities, or did they have a complementary function alongside larger monumental graves? Could they have been experimental sites, testing designs and orientations that later culminated in the grander constructions? Their placement within the landscape invites further questions. Many minor graves are situated in locations with commanding views of surrounding valleys or hills, while others nestle discreetly among rocky outcrops. Were these choices practical, symbolic, or a combination of both? Did proximity to water, agricultural land, or other settlements guide their location? Or were celestial alignments a factor in siting the stones? In some cases, the orientation of the chamber and exedra suggests awareness of solar or lunar events, echoing patterns found in larger Nuragic monuments. The engineering of the minor graves also provokes curiosity. Stones weighing several tons were cut, transported, and set with remarkable care, often interlocking to create structural stability over centuries. How did Bronze Age communities coordinate such work across generations? What techniques allowed for such precision, especially at sites removed from major population centers? And what motivated the repetition of a distinctive architectural form across numerous minor locations? Was it ritual conformity, social cohesion, or symbolic codification of a belief system? Speculative interpretations extend the mystery further. Some researchers have suggested that minor graves served as markers of ancestral territory, binding families or clans to specific landscapes through ritual practice. Others propose that they functioned as local ceremonial sites, where communities could honor the dead without traveling to larger monumental complexes. Could the smaller scale and more dispersed placement of these sites reflect a deliberate social or religious stratification, with minor graves complementing central monumental structures in a broader sacred landscape? The minor sites also challenge assumptions about the Nuragic people's understanding of space and symbolic architecture. While less visually dominant than the grand giants' graves, their repetition and geometric consistency suggest careful planning and shared cultural norms. The elongated corridors, flanking stones, and exedras speak of an intent to structure human experience, procession, interment, or observation within the monument itself. Were these features primarily functional, guiding ritual behavior, or did they encode cosmological or spiritual knowledge now lost to time? Walking among these smaller graves today, one senses a delicate balance between intimacy and monumentality. The stones, though modest, evoke continuity, permanence, and reverence. Their weathered surfaces bear the marks of centuries, yet the form remains discernible, inviting reflection on the hands that shaped them, the communities that built them, and the beliefs they expressed. The landscape itself, rock, soil, and vegetation, interacts with the stones, emphasizing the integration of human effort and natural environment that characterizes much of Sardinia's megalithic heritage. Like the Qobustan stone alignments, the megalithic jars of Assam, and the Axumite Proto-Megaliths, the minor giants' graves resist simple explanation. They are functional yet symbolic, modest yet deliberate, silent yet evocative. Each site, in its scale and placement, invites observation, contemplation, and speculation. Were these graves primarily practical, resting places for the dead, or did they serve a broader ritual or cosmological function? How much knowledge of engineering, labor organization, and ritual practice is encoded in the placement, orientation, and design of these stones? The minor giants' graves endure, often hidden among fields, hills, and scrub, their meaning only partially revealed by excavation and study. They leave questions unanswered, yet their presence is unmistakable, speaking to the human desire to shape the landscape, honor the dead, and inscribe meaning upon the earth. And as one traces the corridors, observes the alignment of stones, and imagines the ceremonies once performed within these spaces, the invitation is clear: to wonder what else remains concealed across Sardinia's hills and valleys, waiting to reveal the ingenuity, belief, and intention of the people who built them. From the windswept hills of Sardinia, where the minor giants' graves quietly mark human ritual across centuries, our journey now crosses the western Mediterranean once more, moving northward to the verdant coastlines of Galicia, Spain. Perched atop a rocky promontory overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, where waves crash against sheer cliffs and the horizon stretches endless and gray, lies one of the Iberian Peninsula's most enigmatic ancient settlements, Castro de Santa Trega. Here, stone and landscape converge in a place both commanding and mysterious, inviting reflection on the lives of the people who once called it home. The site immediately impresses with its dramatic location. From the summit, one surveys a panoramic view of the Minho estuary below, river valleys winding inland, and hills rolling toward the distant horizon. The settlement itself is composed of circular and oval stone houses, carefully arranged along terraces that follow the natural slope of the hill. Surrounding these dwellings are defensive walls, gateways, and ramparts, forming an intricate labyrinth of stone that reflects planning, labor, and communal organization. The layout suggests not only a practical response to terrain and defense, but also a keen understanding of spatial order and the relationship between human activity and environment. Castro de Santa Trega is attributed to the Castro culture, flourishing between the 9th century BCE and the 1st century CE, contemporary with late Iron Age societies across Iberia. The settlement was strategically positioned to control access to river routes, fertile land, and maritime resources, yet its placement atop the hill imparts a symbolic and visual dominance over the surrounding landscape. Archaeological surveys reveal stone foundations of dwellings, hearths, storage pits, and public spaces, providing evidence of daily life, subsistence, and social organization. Yet, despite the clarity of these structures, much about the people, their beliefs, and their methods remains uncertain. One of the most intriguing aspects of Santa Trega is the interplay between the natural environment and the architectural design. The houses follow the curve of the hill, terraces conform to contours, and walls rise from bedrock itself. This integration demonstrates both technical skill and aesthetic sensibility, suggesting that the builders understood how to harmonize human structures with the natural landscape. Could this alignment have held ritual significance, connecting dwellings to celestial patterns, solar paths, or seasonal changes? And if so, how deeply embedded was such knowledge in the daily lives of the inhabitants? Mainstream interpretations emphasize defense, community organization, and settlement planning. The walls and ramparts would have provided protection from rival groups, while the clustering of homes and communal spaces fostered social cohesion. Yet some features resist purely practical explanation. Certain terraces, platforms, and pathways appear to direct movement in ways that may have been ceremonial or symbolic rather than strictly functional. Were these deliberate pathways for processions, gatherings, or ritual observances tied to the land and its seasons? And what knowledge of spatial organization guided such intentionality, generation after generation? Speculative interpretations explore more mysterious dimensions of the site. Some scholars have suggested that Castro de Santa Trega functioned as a ceremonial center, where elevated terraces and terraces of stone framed gatherings that connected community life with the cosmos. Others propose that specific alignments within the settlement, including the orientation of dwellings and gateways, may correspond with solstices or equinoxes, echoing practices observed in megalithic cultures across Europe. Could the settlement itself be read as a symbolic map, where each stone, wall, and terrace encoded cultural and cosmological knowledge? The construction techniques at Santa Trega further deepen the sense of mystery. Stone was quarried, shaped, and transported across terraces and steep slopes, demonstrating technical skill and collective labor. Some dwellings include double walls, stone benches, and carefully constructed hearths, all indicating a nuanced understanding of both stability and human comfort. How did these communities coordinate labor without written plans or tools beyond basic iron or stone implements? And what role did oral tradition, ritual, and shared cultural memory play in transmitting such knowledge across generations? The settlement's location also invites reflection on perception and intentionality. From the summit, observers gain commanding views, not only of the surrounding land and sea, but also of the distant horizon. Was this visual command purely practical, for surveillance and defense, or did it hold spiritual or symbolic significance? Did the inhabitants perceive their settlement as a statement of presence, a connection to the land and waters, or a ceremonial center bridging the human and natural worlds? Walking among the stone terraces today, one senses the echoes of daily life, labor, and ritual. The circular dwellings, now empty and weathered, suggest communal patterns, family organization, and a rhythm of life attuned to both human needs and environmental constraints. Yet the deliberate layout, terraces, and walls hint at something beyond practicality, a vision of order, meaning, and symbolic engagement with space and landscape. Like the Sardinian minor giants' graves, the site combines human intention, environmental adaptation, and enduring mystery, reminding us that even modest structures can carry profound significance. As with the other ancient sites we have explored, from Qobustan's subtle stone alignments to the megalithic jars of Assam and Axumite Proto-Megaliths, Castro de Santa Trega resists simple explanation. It is functional, yet symbolic, defensive, yet expressive, practical, yet potentially ceremonial. How much of its design reflects daily survival, and how much encodes ritual, observation, or social hierarchy? Did the builders intend for the settlement to endure as a mark upon the land, as a connection to the cosmos, or both? The stones endure, silent but resolute, shaping terraces, pathways, and dwellings that continue to capture the imagination. The wind sweeps across the hilltop, carrying the echoes of footsteps, conversations, and ceremonies long past. Each wall, terrace, and house invites contemplation of human intention, skill, and creativity. And in the shadows cast by stone and sunlight, the site whispers its enduring question. What stories, knowledge, and meaning remain hidden in the terraces of Castro de Santa Trega, waiting to be discovered by those who observe, reflect, and wonder? From the windswept terraces of Castro de Santa Trega, where circular stone dwellings and terraces rise above the Atlantic cliffs, our journey now crosses the Iberian landscape once more, moving southward into the rolling plains of southern Portugal. Here, amid cork oak groves and gently undulating farmland, stands one of the largest and most enigmatic megalithic monuments in the Iberian Peninsula, the Dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro. Unlike settlements or linear alignments, this structure asserts itself with monumental presence, a testament to human effort, ritual, and vision dating back over 5 millennia. Approaching the dolmen, one is immediately struck by scale and precision. The chamber, constructed from massive limestone slabs, rises to nearly 4 meters in height. Its capstone, a single colossal block, spans the chamber with uncanny balance, supported by upright stones that have endured centuries of weathering and seismic activity. The entrance, framed by carefully placed orthostats, suggests deliberate orientation and design. Sunlight spills through the passage in shifting patterns depending on the season, hinting at an awareness of celestial cycles. Surrounding the dolmen are traces of tumulus earthworks, indicating that the structure was once covered by a mound of soil and stone, its full scale hidden from view except to those approaching along designated pathways. Archaeological studies date the dolmen to approximately 4000 BCE, placing it within the late Neolithic period and within a broader megalithic tradition that stretches across Western Europe. Excavations have uncovered human remains, pottery fragments, flint tools, and other artifacts, suggesting repeated use as a communal burial site over generations. Yet the sheer size of the stones, the sophistication of their placement, and the alignment of the structure imply intentions that extend beyond simple interment. Was the dolmen primarily a tomb, or was it also a ceremonial or symbolic monument, connecting the living, the dead, and the cosmos? The engineering of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro remains awe-inspiring. The capstone alone weighs an estimated 20 tons. Transporting, lifting, and placing such a stone without wheeled vehicles or modern machinery would have required precise knowledge of leverage, ropes, coordination, and collective labor. How were these techniques developed and transmitted within a culture lacking written records? Was the effort purely practical or imbued with ritual significance, a performance of communal identity and reverence? And why select this particular site, with its subtle elevation, views of distant horizons, and proximity to other megalithic monuments in the Alentejo region? The orientation of the dolmen adds another layer of intrigue. Some researchers have noted that the passage aligns with the sunrise at specific times of the year, perhaps solstices or equinoxes, suggesting that the builders understood the movement of celestial bodies. Could this alignment have marked time for agricultural, ceremonial, or social purposes? Was it a deliberate, symbolic connection between the terrestrial and celestial, an invitation for the living to contemplate cycles of life, death, and rebirth? Or does the apparent alignment merely reflect a practical consideration, a compromise between topography and structural feasibility? Speculative interpretations extend the mystery further. Some scholars propose that the dolmen functioned as a ceremonial focal point, drawing communities together for rites that are now entirely lost to history. Others suggest that the monument may have represented territorial claims, social hierarchy, or cosmological symbolism embedded within the landscape itself. How did the builders conceptualize space, ritual, and time, and how did they encode this knowledge into stone? Could these stones, positioned with such care, have been a form of early communication, a visible statement of human intention and cultural cohesion across generations? The dolmen also invites reflection on endurance and presence. While smaller Neolithic sites have eroded or been dismantled over millennia, the Anta Grande do Zambujeiro persists, monumental in scale and still visually commanding. The weathered surfaces of the orthostats and capstone bear the marks of time, yet the form remains remarkably coherent. How much of its original function, symbolism, and ritual experience is lost to the centuries? And what might future study reveal about the lives of those who labored to construct it, the beliefs that guided their hands, and the knowledge embedded in its orientation, construction, and placement? Walking among the stones today, one is struck by the dialogue between human effort and natural environment. The dolmen asserts permanence, yet it exists within a landscape of subtle hills, groves, and open skies that amplify its presence. The balance between mass and placement, stone and soil, interior chamber and exterior mound, suggests a careful orchestration of experience. To enter the chamber, to feel the weight of the capstone above, is to encounter a direct connection across millennia, a space where the living and the dead, the observed and the observer, converge in silence. Like the minor giants' graves of Sardinia, Castro de Santa Trega, and the other monuments we have explored, the dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro resists simple interpretation. It is functional yet symbolic, monumental yet intimately human, practical yet potentially celestial. Was it built primarily to house the dead, to mark the passage of time, to anchor ritual gatherings, or all of these simultaneously? How much knowledge of engineering, astronomy, social organization, and spiritual practice is encoded within the stones, now weathered and silent? The dolmen endures, a testament to human intention, labor, and imagination. It draws attention not only to the physical stones, but to the questions they provoke, about life and death, community and continuity, observation and meaning. And in the shadows of the chamber, in the interplay of sunlight and stone, one is reminded that the monument is more than the sum of its parts. It is an invitation to wonder. What secrets, stories, and knowledge remain hidden in the stones and mounds of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to observe, reflect, and imagine? From the sun-drenched plains of southern Portugal, where the dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro rises like a sentinel over millennia, our journey now turns eastward across the Mediterranean, toward the fertile valleys of eastern Anatolia. Here, where the Euphrates begins its meandering descent, and the landscape undulates with low hills and alluvial terraces, lie the Arslantepe Mounds, a complex of earthen and stone structures that have quietly preserved traces of some of the earliest known urban and administrative centers. At first glance, these mounds seem modest in scale, a series of earthen rises against a vast horizon. Yet beneath the soil, and within the carefully arranged stones, lies evidence of monumental human endeavor, social organization, and architectural innovation stretching back nearly 7 millennia. The mounds are an intricate patchwork of form and function. Terraces and layered deposits rise gently from the plains, giving the impression of an ancient skyline frozen in time. Excavations reveal mud brick foundations, stone walls, and remnants of buildings that once housed not only domestic life, but administrative and ceremonial activity. Some structures feature intricate layouts, multiple rooms, and courtyards, suggesting planning, hierarchy, and collective effort. Others are associated with fortifications or monumental gateways, hinting at concerns for defense, control, or status. The layering of occupation across centuries, sometimes millennia, creates a palimpsest of human presence, a living record of societal evolution in a single location. Arslantepe is widely recognized as a critical site for understanding the emergence of early state-like societies in Anatolia. Dating from as early as 6000 BCE, the site flourished through the Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age periods, exhibiting evidence of social stratification, administrative control, and complex ritual practice. Archaeologists have uncovered early examples of proto-writing, seals, and accounting tools, suggesting the existence of bureaucracy and economic regulation centuries before comparable developments elsewhere. Yet, despite this insight, many features remain enigmatic. Certain monumental structures, platforms, large halls, and circular enclosures defy simple categorization, leaving open the question of their precise function or symbolic meaning. One of the most striking aspects of Arslantepe is the apparent sophistication of its architectural and engineering practices. Massive mud brick walls, often reinforced with stone foundations, demonstrate an understanding of load-bearing and structural stability that is remarkable for the period. Terraces are carefully leveled and aligned, sometimes over earlier structures, reflecting deliberate planning and continuity of construction knowledge. How were these techniques developed and transmitted over generations? Were the builders motivated purely by practical concerns, protection, storage, habitation, or did ritual and symbolic meaning guide the arrangement of spaces and stones? Could the alignment of certain walls, thresholds, and courtyards relate to astronomical observations, calendrical cycles, or spiritual symbolism? The mound's spatial organization further deepens the mystery. Central structures suggest administrative or ceremonial functions, while peripheral buildings appear residential or utilitarian. Yet the relationship between these zones is not always clear. Why were certain spaces elevated, enclosed, or separated from others? How did inhabitants negotiate movement, ritual, and daily life across such a complex site? And to what extent does the surviving layout reflect the original intention versus subsequent rebuilding, adaptation, or natural deposition over centuries? Speculative interpretations offer even more layers of intrigue. Some researchers suggest that certain monumental platforms may have served as ritual spaces, stages for elite display, or loci of social negotiation. Others propose that the arrangement of structures may encode symbolic or cosmological knowledge, aligning with cardinal directions, solar events, or even topographical features in the surrounding landscape. Could Arslantepe represent an early experiment in urban planning, blending functionality, social hierarchy, and sacred symbolism into one cohesive but partially lost design? And if so, what does this reveal about the intellectual and cultural capacities of its builders? Artifacts recovered from the mounds further complicate our understanding. Seals, ceramics, and metal objects indicate trade, craft specialization, and a complex economy. Figurines and symbolic objects suggest ritual practice and belief systems, though their precise meaning is elusive. How did these material elements relate to the architecture itself? Were certain structures used exclusively for ceremonial purposes, or did they combine domestic, administrative, and ritual functions in ways that challenge modern categories? And what role did social stratification play in the construction and use of monumental spaces? Were these mounds expressions of elite authority, collective identity, or both? The chronological layering of Arslantepe adds another layer of fascination. Excavations reveal that successive generations built atop the remains of their predecessors, creating terraces and mounds that obscure earlier activity. What motivated this pattern of rebuilding and adaptation? Was it purely practical, maximizing limited space and fortifying structures, or was it symbolic, a form of continuity connecting generations and maintaining ancestral presence? And how much knowledge of past construction and ritual practice was preserved, transmitted, or intentionally transformed over time? Walking among the mounds today, one senses a profound dialogue between human ambition, landscape, and time. The low rises, partially excavated terraces, and remnants of walls offer glimpses into the lives of people who observed, organized, and reshaped their environment with skill, intention, and vision. Shadows fall across ancient thresholds, hinting at movement, gathering, and ritual that has long since ceased. Stones, mud brick, and soil converge to create an experience that is both intimate and monumental, practical and symbolic. Like the dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, the minor giants' graves of Sardinia, and Castro de Santa Trega, the Arslantepe Mounds resist singular interpretation. They are functional yet symbolic, residential yet ceremonial, practical yet expressive. Were these mounds primarily centers of administration and economy, sacred spaces for ritual and ceremony, or intentional manifestations of social hierarchy and cosmological belief, or all of these simultaneously? How much knowledge of engineering, observation, social organization, and ritual practice is encoded in the terraces, walls, and platforms, now partially hidden beneath layers of earth? The site endures as both a monument and a puzzle. Its presence invites reflection on the capacities, ambitions, and beliefs of its builders. The layering of structures, the precision of construction, and the interplay between elevated terraces and surrounding landscape all suggest intentionality on a scale that continues to impress modern observers. What secrets remain buried beneath the mounds, waiting to reveal themselves through excavation, observation, or new analytical techniques? And what does Arslantepe, in all its complexity and subtlety, tell us about the emergence of social complexity, ritual practice, and monumental architecture in the ancient world? Standing on the terraces today, the gaze sweeps across the Anatolian plains, tracing the distant river valleys and hills that shaped the lives of those who once built and inhabited this site. The mounds are silent, yet they speak of human ingenuity, ambition, and the persistent desire to organize, observe, and leave a mark upon the earth. Each stone, each terrace, each wall carries fragments of knowledge and intention, fragments that invite us to wonder, reflect, and continue the quest to understand what remains hidden in the Arslantepe Mounds, a testament to civilizations that shaped stone, soil, and social complexity thousands of years ago. From the layered terraces of Arslantepe, where ancient civilizations inscribed their social, administrative, and ritual lives into earth and stone, our exploration now crosses continents, from the fertile valleys of Anatolia to the sweeping plains and rugged foothills of North America. Here, high in the Bighorn Mountains of Wyoming, amidst windswept grasslands and craggy ridges that stretch toward the horizon, lies a structure both simple and profound, a formation of stones whose meaning has puzzled generations of visitors and scholars alike. This is the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, a monumental arrangement of rocks radiating across the high-altitude plains, its quiet presence demanding attention, contemplation, and respect. At first glance, the wheel is deceptively modest. Viewed from ground level, it appears as a loose circle of stones, encircled by smaller rocks and connected by lines, or spokes, that radiate from a central cairn. Yet when observed from a distance, or from an elevated vantage point, the geometric precision becomes unmistakable. A vast circular pattern, measuring approximately 80 feet across, with as many as 28 radial spokes extending outward. The symmetry, scale, and orientation suggest careful planning and intention, a deliberate mapping of space that resonates across both physical and symbolic dimensions. Archaeological and ethnographic research places the wheel within the cultural practices of indigenous peoples of the northern plains, with carbon dating of associated artifacts suggesting use as early as the 12th century CE, though some argue the foundational cairn and spokes may be older. The wheel is part of a broader network of medicine wheels scattered across the Rocky Mountain region, yet Bighorn's is one of the largest and most architecturally sophisticated. Despite centuries of study, scholars remain uncertain about its full purpose. Was it a ceremonial center, an astronomical instrument, or a form of landscape art designed to embody spiritual concepts? The wheel's orientation and structure invite careful observation. Some spokes align with the cardinal points, while others appear to mark significant solar events, including solstices and equinoxes. Researchers have noted possible alignments with distant mountain peaks, rising and setting positions of the sun, and even lunar cycles. Could these alignments reflect an early understanding of celestial mechanics? A way for indigenous peoples to mark seasonal change, guide hunting and agricultural practices, or structure ritual life according to the movements of the heavens? Or is there a more symbolic spiritual meaning encoded within the stone arrangement, linking earth, sky, and human consciousness in ways that modern interpretation struggles to grasp? The construction of the wheel itself demands attention. Thousands of stones, varying in size from fist-sized rocks to substantial boulders, were carefully selected, placed, and balanced to form the central cairn, the outer circle, and the radiating spokes. Transporting and arranging these stones at an altitude of over 9,600 feet, where weather is unpredictable and terrain challenging, would have required significant coordination, knowledge, and communal effort. How were these tasks organized within the societies that built them? And what cultural or spiritual imperatives motivated such labor-intensive creation in a remote, exposed environment? Mainstream interpretations tend to emphasize ceremonial and social significance. The Bighorn medicine wheel may have served as a ritual space, a site for vision quests, communal gatherings, or rites of passage. The central cairn could symbolize the axis mundi, connecting the earthly and spiritual realms, while the spokes represent directions, seasons, or spiritual pathways. Anthropological studies suggest that medicine wheels function as metaphors for life, death, and the cycles of the cosmos, yet such interpretations remain interpretive rather than definitive. How did those who built and used the wheel experience it in their daily or ritual lives? And how did meaning accrue over generations of use? Speculative theories extend the intrigue. Some researchers propose that the wheel functioned as an astronomical observatory, marking solstices, lunar standstills, or significant stellar events. Others suggest it may have served as a spatial map, linking terrain, sacred sites, and natural features into a coherent, symbolic landscape. Could the radiating spokes represent a calendar system, guiding agricultural or migratory patterns? Or were they primarily symbolic, expressing cosmological principles in a way that transcends utilitarian explanation? The answer remains elusive, hidden in the interstices of stone, time, and cultural memory. The wheel's endurance through centuries of wind, snow, and occasional human interference speaks to its resilience and significance. Unlike constructions of wood or adobe, these stones have persisted, leaving only subtle traces of the ceremonies, gatherings, and observations that once animated the space. Yet this endurance also obscures context. Without written records or direct testimony, we rely on alignment, artifact, and ethnographic analogy to interpret meaning. How much of the original purpose and understanding has been lost, and how much can be recovered through observation, careful study, and cultural consultation? The surrounding landscape amplifies the monument's presence. From the wheel, one gazes across high plains dotted with ridges, distant rivers, and peaks that mark horizons both practical and symbolic. The interplay of stone and terrain suggests intentional placement. The wheel is neither random nor isolated. It occupies a liminal space, a threshold between lowland valleys and mountain heights, a place where observation, movement, and ritual intersect. Was the location chosen for its visibility, its prominence, its relation to other sacred sites, or a combination of all three? And how did these environmental factors shape its construction, use, and meaning over time? Walking among the stones, one becomes acutely aware of the dialogue between human intention, natural forces, and the passage of time. Each rock, each spoke, each cairn invites reflection on the hands, eyes, and minds that shaped them. Shadows shift with the movement of the sun. Wind sweeps across the open plain, and subtle variations in elevation and orientation create a rhythm that is both visual and spiritual. The wheel's geometry, at once simple and sophisticated, transforms the landscape into a contemplative space where the tangible and intangible converge. Like Arslantepe, Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, and Castro de Santa Trega, the Bighorn medicine wheel resists reduction to a single explanation. It is functional yet symbolic, monumental yet intimate, practical yet deeply expressive. Was it primarily an instrument to observe celestial events, a ceremonial locus for spiritual engagement, or a symbolic map of the surrounding landscape? Could it have served all these purposes simultaneously, layered with meaning, evolving over generations as new interpretations and practices were added? How did cultural knowledge, observation of the environment, and spiritual vision converge to produce such a precise and enduring monument? The wheel also prompts reflection on human perception and experience. Viewed from a distance, its full design emerges. Up close, one is struck by the weight and placement of individual stones. The interplay of scale, symmetry, and orientation creates a sense of order, coherence, and intentionality. How much of this intentionality was understood by the communities that used it, and how much remains hidden from our modern perspective? What lessons in observation, spatial reasoning, and ritual imagination might the wheel offer, waiting to be discerned by careful attention to stone, horizon, and sky? The Bighorn medicine wheel endures as a silent teacher, a link across time between those who shaped the stones and those who contemplate them today. Its presence invites both study and wonder, demanding careful observation and thoughtful interpretation. And as we gaze upon its central cairn, its radiating spokes, and its circle etched against the high plains, we are left with an enduring question. What knowledge, belief, and purpose guided the hands that built this wheel? And what other secrets remain hidden in the plains, waiting to reveal the full depth of human ingenuity, observation, and ritual imagination? Here, at the intersection of earth, sky, and human endeavor, the Bighorn medicine wheel stands as a testament to the capacity of ancient peoples to create structures that transcend time, structures that are at once practical, symbolic, and profoundly mysterious. Its stones endure, but their meaning remains partially veiled, challenging us to look, reflect, and imagine. What remains undiscovered, unrecognized, or unseen within this ancient circle of stone, and what might it teach us about the ways humans have always sought to understand, honor, and align themselves with the cosmos? From the high plains of Wyoming, where the Bighorn medicine wheel casts its silent geometries against the sky, our exploration now turns southward across the Atlantic, toward the sweeping savannas, river valleys, and gentle undulations of West Africa. Here, in the heart of Senegambia, a region straddling modern Senegal and the Gambia, an extraordinary concentration of megalithic monuments punctuates the landscape. These are the stone circles of Senegambia, enigmatic arrangements of standing stones whose origins, purpose, and meaning continue to confound scholars and inspire wonder. Unlike isolated dolmens or single ceremonial wheels, these sites form vast networks across hundreds of square kilometers, suggesting a society capable of remarkable coordination, vision, and ritual expression. Approaching a typical circle, one is struck immediately by scale and rhythm. Each site is composed of dozens, sometimes hundreds of granite or laterite stones set upright in a deliberate arrangement. The stones vary in height, from modest boulders to towering monoliths approaching 2 meters, and are spaced with surprising regularity, forming circles, ovals, and occasionally concentric rings. Some sites feature entrances or alignments, while others appear as open configurations, leaving the space within the circle empty but charged with the weight of intentionality. Viewed from above, the patterns reveal a geometric sophistication that is astonishing, particularly when one considers that many of these stones were quarried, shaped, and transported without metal tools or wheeled vehicles. Archaeological research dates the construction of these stone circles roughly between the 3rd century BCE and the 16th century CE, indicating a remarkable continuity of megalithic practice across centuries. Excavations have revealed burial contexts within and around the circles, often containing human remains, pottery, beads, and other artifacts. Radiocarbon dating places many interments within the late 1st millennium CE, though some stones may be older. These findings suggest that the circles were intimately connected with funerary practices, yet they also raise questions about spatial and ritual choices. Why construct circles of such scale and precision for burial purposes? And how did the builders coordinate the placement of so many stones across such expansive territory? The spatial patterns of the Senegambian stone circles are intriguing. Some researchers have noted alignments that suggest observation of solar or lunar events, while others propose connections to seasonal cycles, migration patterns, or sacred geography. Could the stones have functioned as astronomical markers, guiding agricultural, hunting, or ceremonial timing? Or were they primarily symbolic, creating sacred enclosures that defined social, political, or spiritual boundaries? Perhaps they served multiple purposes simultaneously, practical, ceremonial, and symbolic, reflecting a worldview in which human, terrestrial, and celestial realms were intertwined. Construction of the circles required immense labor and skill. Stones were extracted from nearby quarries or transported across considerable distances, then raised, aligned, and embedded in the ground with care. Without written records, the knowledge of geometry, measurement, and coordination must have been preserved orally, through observation, practice, and shared cultural understanding. What systems of knowledge, ritual, and social organization allowed communities in Senegambia to accomplish these feats? And how did such monumental effort reinforce social cohesion, status, or spiritual practice within these societies? The function of the circles remains debated. Burial is the most immediate explanation, supported by the discovery of human remains, but it may be only part of the story. Some circles appear to have served as gathering places, sites for ritual performance, or territorial markers. Others may encode symbolic or cosmological knowledge, linking humans to the landscape and to celestial cycles. Could the placement of stones have been dictated by observation of the sun, moon, or stars? Might the circular form itself, repeated across hundreds of sites, have embodied philosophical or spiritual principles, expressing ideas about continuity, life, and death, and the order of the cosmos? Speculative interpretations broaden the sense of mystery. Some suggest that the circles reflect complex social hierarchies or governance structures, with certain stones marking the presence of elites, spiritual leaders, or clan territories. Others propose that the arrangements acted as memory maps, encoding stories, histories, or ancestral knowledge into the landscape itself. Could the stone circles of Senegambia have functioned simultaneously as tombs, ceremonial centers, astronomical instruments, and symbolic maps of territory? And if so, how did the builders transmit and preserve this multi-layered knowledge over centuries? The relationship between the circles and the surrounding environment is striking. Many sites occupy elevated ground, overlooking plains, rivers, and forests. Others are nestled within subtle valleys or near natural features that may have held spiritual significance. This placement suggests that builders were attentive not only to local topography, but to broader spatial and symbolic relationships. How did the landscape shape the circle's design, orientation, and construction? Were some sites chosen for visibility, others for seclusion, and still others for alignment with sacred or cosmological landmarks? Walking among the stones today, one senses a profound dialogue between human intention and natural forces. The silence of the savanna, the shifting light of sunrise and sunset, and the gentle sway of grass across the ancient stone bases evoke the passage of centuries. Each upright stone is at once monumental and intimate, a marker of human labor, social cohesion, and spiritual intent. The spaces within the circles, left deliberately empty, invite reflection on human presence, ritual action, and the invisible connections that once animated these sites. Like the Bighorn medicine wheel, Arslantepe Mounds, and the Dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, the Senegambian stone circles resist simple categorization. They are functional yet symbolic, monumental yet approachable, practical yet deeply expressive. Were they primarily burial sites, astronomical observatories, ceremonial centers, or symbolic markers, or all of these at once? How did these communities maintain continuity, coordination, and cultural memory across centuries and generations? And how much of their purpose is lost to time, leaving only the stones as silent witnesses to human ingenuity and imagination? The endurance of the circles is remarkable. Many have survived centuries of weathering, agriculture, and human activity, preserving their form and spatial integrity. Yet the passage of time also obscures detail. Some stones have fallen, patterns have been disrupted, and context has eroded. How might a full understanding of the site have been experienced by its builders? How did movement within the circles, interaction with the stones, and observation of environmental and celestial patterns shape the rituals, beliefs, and social cohesion of the communities who built them? The circles also invite reflection on human perception of scale, order, and symbolism. From a distance, their geometric patterns emerge, imposing a sense of rhythm and design upon the natural landscape. Up close, the individual stones speak of human effort, skill, and careful placement. The combination of macro and micro perspectives suggests a deliberate engagement with both the immediate and the cosmic, a tangible expression of knowledge, observation, and belief inscribed in stone. Today, the stone circles of Senegambia stand as a testament to human creativity, social coordination, and ritual imagination. They remind us that monumental achievement need not rely on written records or metal tools, but on observation, planning, and collective vision. The circles endure as silent teachers, bridging past and present, encouraging contemplation, study, and wonder. And as one gazes across the savanna, tracing the arcs, rings, and radial stones, it becomes clear that the circles are more than simple monuments. They are enduring questions, inviting us to consider what knowledge, ritual, and intention are embedded within the landscape, and what remains hidden, waiting to be discovered, understood, and imagined. The stones persist, scattered yet ordered, monumental yet intimate, simple yet sophisticated. And in their quiet endurance lies a challenge to the observer, to look beyond the visible, to imagine the hands, eyes, and minds that shaped them, and to wonder what secrets remain buried in the soil, encoded in alignment, rhythm, and repetition. What deeper truths about life, death, society, and cosmology were embedded in these circles? and how much of this knowledge is still waiting for those willing to observe, reflect, and listen to the silent language of stone? In the vast and undulating landscape of Senegambia, the stone circles endure as markers of human intention, imagination, and persistence. A landscape of mystery, contemplation, and awe, where each circle is both a monument and a question, standing across centuries as a testament to civilizations that shaped stone, sky, and society in ways we are only beginning to understand. From the sweeping savannas and river valleys of Senegambia, where ancient stones form circles of ritual, observation, and memory, our journey now crosses the Mediterranean to the island of Cyprus, where the warm sun glints off terraced hillsides and the sea whispers along rocky shores. Here, nestled in a landscape of low hills, valleys, and scattered springs, lies Cairn, one of the most remarkable and mysterious Neolithic settlements in the Mediterranean, a place where stone and mud brick, community, and ritual converge to form a settlement that has endured in the archaeological record for over 7 millennia. Approaching Cairn, one is struck immediately by the density and regularity of the structures. The settlement is composed of circular stone foundations, tightly clustered and carefully arranged along narrow streets and terraces that follow the contours of the hill. Each house is circular, with thick walls constructed from unworked limestone and mud, forming sturdy enclosures that have resisted millennia of weathering. The interiors are small but functional, often featuring hearths, built-in benches, and storage spaces. Yet the overall arrangement is more than a collection of dwellings. It is a highly organized network of communal and domestic spaces, a settlement carefully adapted to both terrain and social needs. Excavations at Cairn date the settlement to approximately 7,000 to 6,000 BCE, placing it firmly within the Neolithic period. The site provides a rare window into early Mediterranean urbanism, illustrating patterns of sedentism, agriculture, and social organization that were revolutionary for its time. Animal remains, agricultural tools, pottery fragments, and personal ornaments attest to a society capable of planning, production, and long-term settlement. Yet despite the wealth of material evidence, many aspects of Cairn remain enigmatic. How did these communities organize labor, distribute resources, and maintain social cohesion in a densely clustered settlement? And what cultural or spiritual principles guided the design of streets, houses, and communal spaces? One of the most intriguing aspects of Cairn is the circular form of the dwellings. Unlike rectangular or linear houses common in other early Neolithic settlements, each home here was built as a perfect circle, some with diameters approaching 7 meters. Were these forms purely functional, optimized for thermal efficiency, structural stability, or communal living? Or did they carry symbolic meaning, perhaps representing the cyclical nature of life, death, and the seasons? Could the repetition of circular form across the settlement reflect a shared cosmology, a communal understanding of the world that shaped daily life, ritual, and memory? The settlement's layout further deepens the mystery. Houses cluster around central spaces and open courtyards, suggesting areas of communal activity, exchange, or ritual gathering. Streets wind organically, yet with clear logic, allowing movement between dwellings while preserving intimate spaces. Some houses are larger or more complex, hinting at social differentiation or functional specialization. Could these differences reflect hierarchical organization, or were they the result of environmental adaptation, family size, or occupation? And what principles guided the placement of each house relative to the others, the pathways, and the natural features of the hill? Excavators have also noted evidence of ritual and symbolic practice. Certain homes contain figurines, often female forms, interpreted as fertility symbols, alongside carefully arranged artifacts and hearths, Burials are interspersed within the settlement, sometimes beneath floors, suggesting an intimate connection between the living and the dead. How did these practices shape daily life, and what do they reveal about the belief systems of Kirokitia's inhabitants? Were the circular houses themselves symbolic, creating a spatial reflection of cosmological or spiritual principles? And how did the act of living, laboring, and dying within these enclosed circles influence communal identity and cultural memory? Speculative interpretations have long surrounded Kirokitia. Some archaeologists propose that the circular homes and their clustering express social cohesion and egalitarian principles, emphasizing community over hierarchy. Others suggest that the spatial design may encode ritual or astronomical knowledge, aligning entrances, hearths, or central spaces with celestial events such as solstices or lunar cycles. Could Kirokitia have functioned as a kind of observatory, a communal calendar, or even a symbolic map of time and seasonality? And if so, how did this knowledge integrate with practical needs, shelter, storage, food production, and defense, without compromising the harmony of the settlement? The construction techniques at Kirokitia also invite admiration and curiosity. Walls of unworked limestone, sometimes over a meter thick, rise from carefully leveled foundations, their stability achieved without mortar or metal reinforcement. Roofs were likely supported by timber beams, now lost to time, and interiors were organized for efficiency and domestic function. How did these early builders coordinate labor and resources to construct entire villages of circular stone dwellings? Was knowledge transmitted orally, through apprenticeship, or through ritualized practice embedded in the act of building itself? And what cultural imperatives inspired such sustained effort over generations, producing a settlement both practical and aesthetically coherent? The natural environment of Kirokitia adds yet another layer to its mystery. The settlement occupies a strategic hilltop, overlooking fertile plains and water sources, yet it is also exposed to wind, weather, and potential threats. Was this choice motivated by defense, visibility, ritual symbolism, or a combination of factors? Could the elevated location have enhanced celestial observation, allowed communal surveillance, or connected the settlement spiritually to the surrounding landscape? And how did the topography shape the daily rhythms of life, movement, and ceremony within the village? Walking among the stone foundations today, one is struck by the interplay of scale and intimacy. The houses, modest in size yet carefully constructed, convey a sense of human presence and daily life. The clustering of dwellings evokes the rhythms of community, where proximity fosters interaction, cooperation, and shared memory. And yet, the arrangement, precision, and repetition suggest that this was not merely pragmatic construction. It was a deliberate orchestration of space, labor, and social meaning. Each circle, each pathway, each shared courtyard speaks to human intention, imagination, and a vision of communal life deeply attuned to both landscape and culture. Like the Bighorn medicine wheel, the stone circles of Senegambia, and the Dolmen of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, Kirokitia resists simple interpretation. It is functional yet symbolic, domestic yet monumental, practical yet deeply expressive. Were the circular homes purely utilitarian, or did their form embody cosmology, ritual, or social philosophy? Did the clustering of dwellings encode relationships between family, community, and the spiritual realm? And what knowledge, observation, and cultural memory guided their construction, use, and maintenance over centuries? The endurance of Kirokitia is remarkable. While timber roofs have vanished and interior floors have eroded, the stone foundations remain, preserving the geometric clarity of the village. These remnants offer a tangible connection across 7 millennia, a silent record of human ingenuity, social organization, and ritual practice. And yet, as with so many ancient sites, the full story remains elusive. How did inhabitants experience these spaces? What rhythms of work, play, and ceremony shaped their lives? And what knowledge has been lost, leaving only stone circles, pathways, and foundations as markers of memory and intention? The settlement also prompts reflection on human perception of order, community, and symbolic meaning. From above, the concentric arrangement of houses and streets appears logical and coherent, a harmonious integration of architecture with terrain. Up close, the details of stone placement, hearth construction, and spatial organization reveal careful attention to both daily life and collective purpose. The village itself becomes a lens through which we can explore questions of social cohesion, ritual practice, and the relationship between humans and their environment. Cairn endures as a monument to human creativity, observation, and imagination. Its stone circles, clustered terraces, and carefully planned pathways bridge past and present, offering insight into the ways early Mediterranean societies shaped their environment, structured their communities, and engaged with the unknown. And as we trace the contours of circular walls, follow narrow streets, and contemplate the placement of hearths and communal spaces, we are left with an enduring question. What knowledge, belief, and social intelligence guided the hands, minds, and eyes that built this village? The settlement persists as both a record and a puzzle, a place where human labor, architectural skill, and cultural vision converge. Each foundation, each circular house, each pathway is a testament to intention and planning, yet their ultimate purpose remains partially obscured. Was Cairn a purely domestic settlement, a ceremonial center, a place of astronomical observation, or a combination of all three? And how did the cumulative knowledge of generations shape the construction, maintenance, and evolution of this remarkable village? As one walks through the remnants of Cairn today, the weight of human presence resonates. The stones speak of hands that labored to quarry, shape, and position them, of minds that conceived circular dwellings and streets, and of communities that lived, worked, and ritualized their lives within these enclosures. The settlement is both intimate and monumental, practical and symbolic, a place where the rhythms of daily life and the mysteries of existence intersect. And in this intersection, Cairn poses its enduring invitation to observe, to reflect, and to imagine. What secrets lie buried beneath the foundations? What knowledge of labor, ritual, and cosmology guided its construction? And what might this extraordinary Neolithic settlement reveal about the capacity of early societies to organize space, structure social life, and engage with both earthly and celestial realms in ways that continue to challenge and inspire us today? Here, on the hills of Cyprus, Cairn stands as a testament to human ingenuity, perseverance, and imagination. A settlement that, even after 7,000 years, continues to whisper its mysteries to those willing to see, to think, and to wonder. From the serene terraces of Cairn, where circular homes whisper of ancient communal life and ritual practice, our journey now sweeps across continents and oceans to the high Andes of Peru. Here, nestled within a deep valley carved by the Urubamba River, rises Ollantaytambo, a site of dramatic landscapes, steep terraces, and one of the most enigmatic architectural feats of the Inca civilization. The massive, precisely cut and fitted wall blocks that form its foundations, terraces, and ceremonial precincts. At first glance, these stones appear as monumental and deliberate, their size and precision demanding both awe and contemplation, standing as a testament to human ingenuity amid the rugged mountains. The walls of Ollantaytambo are a spectacle of scale, craftsmanship, and alignment. Some stones weigh dozens of tons, their surfaces smoothed and edges meticulously shaped to interlock without mortar. Certain blocks are polygonal, their irregular forms fitting together like an intricate jigsaw puzzle, leaving no visible gaps. Other stones are enormous, rectangular megaliths stacked to create terraces, defensive walls, and platforms that have withstood centuries of earthquakes, weather, and human activity. The visual effect is both imposing and hypnotic. The massive stones seem almost alive, as though they were quarried not just for construction, but to communicate permanence, power, and knowledge. Archaeologists date the major constructions at Ollantaytambo to the late horizon of the Inca Empire, approximately the 15th and early 16th centuries CE. Yet the techniques and precision displayed in the wall blocks suggest knowledge and skills that continue to challenge modern engineers. The careful placement, the seemingly impossible transportation of massive stones from distant quarries, and the perfect interlocking of irregular forms imply a level of sophistication that goes beyond simple construction. How did the Incas, or possibly their predecessors, achieve this precision? What combination of tools, techniques, and labor organization allowed them to manipulate blocks that weigh up to 70 tons with such exactness? The location of Ollantaytambo amplifies its mystery. Perched on a ridge with terraces cascading into the Urubamba Valley, the site commands strategic control over the surrounding landscape. The terraces themselves are agricultural marvels, blending engineering with environmental adaptation, yet they rest atop foundations whose sheer size and precision suggest symbolic or ceremonial importance beyond mere practicality. Were the massive wall blocks constructed primarily for defense and stability, or did they carry symbolic meaning as markers of cosmological, spiritual, or political authority? And if symbolism played a role, how was it encoded in the stonework? One of the most striking aspects of the wall blocks is their polygonal construction. Unlike the uniform, rectangular stones seen in many later Andean structures, the irregular polygons at Ollantaytambo fit together so precisely that it is nearly impossible to insert even a knife blade between them. The effect is both aesthetically captivating and structurally formidable, with walls that have endured earthquakes and centuries of exposure. How were these forms designed and executed with such accuracy? Did builders rely on geometry, trial and error, or techniques now lost to history? And was there a deeper understanding of physics and seismic resilience inherent in their method, an understanding encoded in the arrangement of stone that modern engineers are only beginning to appreciate? Speculation naturally follows. Some researchers propose that the irregular, polygonal blocks were intentionally shaped to convey symbolic meaning, perhaps reflecting cosmological principles or ritual knowledge. Could the form of each stone relate to a celestial body, seasonal cycle, or spiritual concept? Might the walls themselves have been conceived as a narrative, a story inscribed in stone about Inca cosmology, lineage, or power? Others suggest that the stone's astonishing precision is evidence of advanced surveying, measurement, and organizational skills, yet how such techniques were transmitted orally or through apprenticeship remains elusive. Transporting these stones presents another layer of intrigue. Many blocks originate from quarries located hundreds of meters away, some at higher elevations, requiring movement across uneven, mountainous terrain. Experimental archaeology demonstrates that moving and raising stones of such mass without modern machinery is extraordinarily difficult, demanding vast labor forces, sophisticated leverage techniques, and intimate knowledge of materials and terrain. How did the builders orchestrate such feats, coordinating labor, logistics, and safety in a high-altitude environment prone to steep drops and rapid weather changes? And what motivated them to invest such energy into a construction whose precision seems to surpass functional necessity? Ollantaytambo's walls also interact with light, shadow, and landscape in subtle and deliberate ways. Certain terraces and blocks align with distant peaks, valleys, and watercourses, hinting at an awareness of topography, astronomy, or both. Could these alignments have served ritual purposes, marking solstices, equinoxes, or celestial events? Or were they designed to enhance the visual and symbolic presence of the site, making it a theater of power visible from miles across the valley? And how did this integration of natural and constructed elements influence daily life, ceremony, and governance within the settlement? Evidence from the site further deepens the sense of wonder. Carved niches, doorways, and staircases integrate seamlessly with the massive wall blocks, suggesting careful planning and a sophisticated understanding of spatial flow. The walls themselves seem almost sculptural, guiding movement, framing views, and creating spaces that are at once functional, ceremonial, and aesthetically impactful. How much of this design was driven by practical needs, and how much by a vision that combined ritual, power, and cosmic symbolism? Could the walls be considered both infrastructure and narrative, a stone text encoding knowledge, identity, and belief? The durability of the wall blocks is remarkable. Earthquakes that would topple masonry in other regions have barely shifted the massive stones at Ollantaytambo. This resilience raises further questions about construction methods. Was their stability purely the result of careful fitting and mass, or were builders aware of techniques that dissipated seismic energy? And if such knowledge existed, how was it developed, preserved, and transmitted within the Inca or pre-Inca culture? Could these walls hold technical secrets, hidden in plain sight, about ancient engineering that surpasses what we often attribute to pre-modern societies? Walking along the terraces and walls today, one experiences the interplay of human labor, environmental adaptation, and monumental vision. The stones, massive yet elegant, form corridors, enclosures, and terraces that guide movement and perspective. Shadows shift over angled surfaces, highlighting their polygonal forms, while distant peaks in the river valley create a backdrop that emphasizes both scale and precision. Each block, each joint, each alignment carries with it the labor, knowledge, and intention of those who shaped it, and the cumulative effect is one of awe tempered with curiosity. Like Quiroquitia, the Bighorn medicine wheel, and the Senegambian stone circles, Ollantaytambo resists singular interpretation. Its walls are functional yet symbolic, monumental yet intimate, practical yet deeply expressive. Were the polygonal blocks primarily a defensive measure, a ceremonial marker, or a statement of technological and political prowess? Did they encode knowledge about astronomy, cosmology, or environmental adaptation? And how did successive generations understand, maintain, and perhaps reinterpret the purpose of these stones? The site also invites reflection on the relationship between human ambition and natural forces. Situated at nearly 2,800 meters above sea level, Ollantaytambo endures extreme weather, seismic activity, and centuries of human intervention. And yet, the walls remain largely intact, a testimony to both the skill of their builders and the careful integration of architecture with landscape. How did the builders anticipate, accommodate, or even harness these natural forces in their design? Could there have been observational, empirical, or ritualized methods that informed their choices, blending engineering with spirituality in ways we are only beginning to appreciate? The massive walls of Ollantaytambo also raise questions about labor organization and social structure. Coordinating the transport, shaping, and placement of blocks weighing tens of tons would have required substantial planning, hierarchical management, and collective effort. Was the labor voluntary, conscripted, or ritualized? How were skills transmitted, and how did communities maintain coherence during such ambitious undertakings? And what does this tell us about the broader socio-political structures of the Incas, or perhaps earlier cultures that influenced Inca building practices? Standing before the wall blocks, one is acutely aware of the dialogue between permanence and impermanence. The stones speak of human intention, of knowledge passed across generations, and of the desire to impose order and meaning on a landscape that is both majestic and formidable. Yet the mysteries remain. How were such massive stones quarried, transported, and shaped with such precision? What knowledge, technological, observational, and organizational, was encoded in the walls? And what symbolic, cosmological, or spiritual principles guided their construction, use, and preservation? Ollantaytambo endures as both a monument and a puzzle, bridging past and present, engineering and ritual, practicality and symbolism. Its walls testify to a civilization capable of extraordinary coordination, skill, and vision, yet they also conceal knowledge we may never fully recover. They remind us that human ingenuity is timeless, and that monumental architecture can carry meanings that reach far beyond their immediate function. Each polygonal block, each terrace, each alignment is an invitation to wonder, to reflect, and to probe the depths of what ancient builders knew, and what they left for us to discover. And so, the massive walls of Ollantaytambo remain silent teachers, standing as enduring witnesses to human creativity, labor, and imagination. Their polygonal forms, precise joints, and monumental scale challenge modern understanding, inviting observation, study, and speculation. What secrets are encoded in the stone's geometry, their alignment, and their placement within the valley? How much of this knowledge has been lost to time, and what might remain to be uncovered in the interplay of earth, sky, and human vision? In their silent grandeur, the walls continue to ask, what did the builders know? What were their intentions, and what remains hidden within the mountains, waiting for those who seek to understand the extraordinary ingenuity of civilizations long past? From the steep terraces and massive walls of Ollantaytambo, where Inca engineering meets monumental vision, our exploration now turns eastward across the Mediterranean to the sun-drenched archipelago of Malta. On this small island, amid limestone cliffs, gentle valleys, and the scattered remnants of prehistoric villages, lies one of the most enigmatic megalithic complexes in Europe, the Tarxien Temples. Here, carved stone, intricate reliefs, and labyrinthine chambers reveal a society whose creativity, ritual sophistication, and architectural skill challenge conventional understanding, leaving us to wonder not just about how these structures were built, but why. Arriving at Tarxien, the first impression is of density and complexity. Unlike the solitary dolmens or linear alignments of other prehistoric sites, Tarxien presents a cluster of interconnected temples, their stone walls arranged in spiraling corridors and semicircular chambers. The structures are low to the ground, yet monumental in their effect. Each carved block seems purposeful, as though it were selected not only for structural stability but to convey meaning. The temple complex spans roughly 60 by 40 meters, with multiple precincts connected through narrow passages, creating a sense of enclosure and intimacy despite the grandeur of the architecture. Archaeological evidence dates Tarxien to approximately 3,150 to 2,500 BCE, placing it within the late Neolithic period and making it contemporaneous with other remarkable Mediterranean megalithic sites. Yet the site distinguishes itself through the intricacy of its stonework. Many walls are decorated with relief carvings of spirals, zigzags, concentric circles, and symbolic motifs that evoke fertility, abundance, and cosmological cycles. Stone altars, platforms, and benches suggest ritual use, while evidence of sacrificial deposits, including animal bones and fragmented statuettes, indicates complex ceremonial practices. Could these carvings and deposits reveal a symbolic language, a coded understanding of life, death, and the cosmos that has been lost to time. The construction of Tarxien is extraordinary. The limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, were quarried locally, yet their precise shaping, interlocking joints, and careful arrangement reflect an advanced understanding of material properties. Walls are often double-faced, with carefully dressed stone on both interior and exterior surfaces, while chambers are oriented with subtle attention to light and movement. How were these constructions planned and executed without written records, wheeled vehicles, or metal tools? What methods allowed Neolithic builders to achieve such precision and complexity in their stonework? And how much of their technical knowledge was embedded in ritual practice, oral tradition, or apprenticeship? One of the most compelling features of Tarxien is its apparent symbolic coherence. The spiral motifs carved into the stone walls seem more than decorative. They may represent cycles of life, death, and fertility, reflecting an intimate connection between the community, their environment, and their beliefs. Certain chambers align with entrances, altars, or focal points, suggesting deliberate choreography of movement and ritual. Could these alignments also have astronomical significance, marking solstices, equinoxes, or lunar cycles? If so, what does this reveal about the cognitive and observational skills of the Neolithic builders? And how might ritual, astronomy, and symbolic representation have been integrated into daily life and spiritual practice? Excavations at Tarxien reveal multiple phases of construction, with newer structures often built atop older ones. This layering suggests a long-term engagement with the site, with successive generations adapting, expanding, and reinterpreting the sacred space. What motivated such sustained attention? Was it veneration of ancestors, a desire to maintain cosmic or spiritual order, or practical management of ceremonial functions? And how did the evolving architecture reflect shifts in social organization, religious practice, or symbolic emphasis over centuries? The interior spaces of Tarxien further deepen the sense of mystery. Semicircular chambers, carved altars, and raised platforms suggest areas for ritual performance, communal gatherings, or offerings. Certain floors bear traces of red ochre, potentially indicating ceremonial painting or blood rituals, while niches and recesses may have housed statues, figurines, or sacred objects. How were these spaces used in practice? Did each chamber serve a specific purpose, or was ritual improvisational, guided by cultural memory and collective participation? And what role did sensory experience, light, shadow, smell, sound, play in shaping the spiritual and social impact of the site? The sophistication of Tarxien's stone carvings is particularly striking. Reliefs depict abstract patterns, stylized animals, and symbolic motifs that may encode cultural, cosmological, or spiritual knowledge. Spirals, zigzags, and concentric circles appear repeatedly, hinting at an underlying symbolic system or cosmological understanding. Could these patterns represent celestial cycles, seasonal rhythms, or life cycles of humans and animals? Or were they primarily symbolic, serving as visual prompts for ritual, memory, and social cohesion? And how did the repetition and variation of these motifs contribute to the coherence and perceived power of the temple complex? Speculative theories naturally emerge alongside archaeological interpretations. Some researchers suggest that Tarxien functioned as a fertility center, with rituals dedicated to agricultural cycles, reproductive health, and communal prosperity. Others propose that the temples were used for astronomical observation or timekeeping, with orientations marking solar and lunar events. Could Tarxien have combined these functions, integrating practical, ritual, and symbolic dimensions into a coherent experience? And if so, how did builders conceptualize and transmit this multi-layered knowledge without written language, relying instead on oral tradition, apprenticeship, and embodied practice? The construction and preservation of Tarxien also invite reflection on engineering and labor organization. The precision of stone fitting, the alignment of chambers, and the durability of structures indicate careful planning, skilled labor, and communal coordination. How were tasks divided among builders? Were there specialists, artisans, or ritual leaders who guided construction and maintenance? And what social, spiritual, or political mechanisms ensured the cohesion and continuity of such ambitious projects over centuries? Walking through the temple complex today, one experiences an interplay of intimacy and grandeur. Narrow corridors lead to enclosed chambers, whose carved walls evoke rhythm, movement, and narrative. The density of stone, the precision of placement, and the subtle interplay of light and shadow create a sensory experience that feels both deliberate and mysterious. Each wall, niche, and relief carries the memory of human labor, observation, and intention, yet the ultimate meaning remains partially obscured, accessible only through careful study and imagination. Like Ollantaytambo, Kirokitia, and the Senegambian stone circles, Tarxien resists simple explanation. Its architecture is functional, yet symbolic, communal, yet monumental, practical, yet deeply expressive. Were the temples primarily sites for ritual, fertility, or astronomical observation? Or did they integrate all of these functions, serving as focal points for cultural memory, social cohesion, and spiritual experience? How much knowledge has been lost, and how much can be reconstructed through careful observation, comparison, and inference? The site also emphasizes the relationship between humans and landscape. Tarxien is built from local limestone, yet its placement, orientation, and construction suggest a careful dialogue with natural features, including the surrounding terrain, sun angles, and sightlines. Could these choices have been influenced by spiritual or cosmological considerations, as well as practical concerns? How did builders perceive the land, and how did their conception of sacred space integrate with the physical environment? The enduring nature of Tarxien continues to impress. Despite thousands of years of weathering, human interference, and environmental change, the walls, reliefs, and chambers retain their form, preserving a tangible connection to Neolithic life. And yet, with all the evidence we have, the full story remains elusive. How were ceremonies conducted, and what social or spiritual hierarchies were enacted within the spaces? How did successive generations reinterpret and maintain the site, and what symbolic knowledge has been irretrievably lost? Walking amidst the carved stones today, it is easy to feel the presence of those who built, used, and revered the temples. The spirals seem to pulse with the energy of past ritual. The niches and altars whisper of offerings long gone, and the corridors suggest movement, performance, and observation. The human scale, labor, and imagination embedded in each stone remind us that monumental architecture need not rely on size alone. It can convey meaning, intention, and collective memory through precision, pattern, and placement. Tarxien invites reflection on the nature of knowledge, ritual, and cultural expression. How did its builders conceive of space, time, and cosmology? How were abstract patterns transformed into lived experience? And how did the act of shaping stone, arranging chambers, and performing ritual encode and transmit understanding across generations? Each relief, altar, and carved wall seems to offer hints, yet the full picture remains tantalizingly out of reach. The site's enduring mystery is a reminder that ancient monuments are both records and questions. They testify to skill, observation, and intention, but they also provoke inquiry, speculation, and imagination. How much of Tarxien's function and meaning was understood by its builders, and how much has been transformed or obscured by time? What lessons might the site offer about the relationship between humans, landscape, and the cosmos? And how might these lessons challenge modern assumptions about technological and spiritual sophistication in the Neolithic Mediterranean? Tarxien stands as a testament to human ingenuity, imagination, and devotion. Its walls, reliefs, and chambers endure not only as physical structures, but as enduring prompts to explore the intersection of ritual, architecture, and cosmology. They are monuments of labor, creativity, and observation, yet they also pose an enduring challenge: to interpret intention without presuming, to reconstruct practice without certainty, and to understand meaning without complete knowledge. In the quiet of the Maltese plains, amid the sun, limestone, and shadowed corridors of Tarxien, one senses a dialogue across millennia. The stones speak of human hands shaping space, human minds structuring ritual, and human eyes observing the cycles of life, death, and the cosmos. And yet, despite all that has been uncovered, the temples retain their secrets. What knowledge was encoded in each spiral, each chamber, and each altar? What practices, beliefs, and observations have been lost, leaving only stone as witness? As we trace the corridors, examine the reliefs, and imagine the ceremonies that once filled these spaces, Tarxien invites us to wonder: what remains hidden in plain sight, and how might the Neolithic builders have experienced this extraordinary place? What insights about ritual, social cohesion, and human ingenuity lie embedded in stone, waiting for those willing to look, reflect, and imagine? And in the end, what does Tarxien reveal about the enduring human desire to shape, understand, and sanctify the world, leaving behind monuments that continue to speak across millennia? Here, in Malta, the Tarxien Temples endure as both a record and a question, a complex, layered, and profoundly mysterious site where stone, ritual, and imagination converge. Their labyrinthine corridors, carved motifs, and monumental chambers invite us to pause, reflect, and wonder. And as we step among the stones, tracing the lines, curves, and spirals left by hands long gone, we are reminded that the past is never entirely silent, and that the mysteries of Tarxien, like so many ancient structures across the world, remain alive, waiting to be explored, interpreted, and understood.